Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was in Sonic the Hedgehog. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by mellra and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Yellow / blue blur. They had won. After all the violence, all the destruction, the Fourth Shinobi World War was finally over. All had seemed lost when Obito Uchiha had merged with the Ten Tails and Madara Uchiha had an immortal undead body. Even with the previous 4 Hokage resurrected and Sasuke Uchiha joining in on the allies' side, it all seemed hopeless. Let it never be said though, that Naruto Uzumaki was one to bow to the odds, thanks to his improved relationship with the nine-tailed fox, Kurama, and the support of his friends and comrades. Naruto was able to have Madara sealed away for all eternity, and he was able to free the 7 Bijuu that made up the Ten Tails' body. With the help of seals provided to him by the other Kages and Orochimaru of all people, Naruto was able to remove the tailed beast from Obito and deal a mortal blow to the master manipulator. After a tearful goodbye to his father and the other Hokages, all of whom gave him words of wisdom and encouragement, the jutsu on them was cancelled, returning them to the afterlife. It was then that he noticed Hinata Hyuga, the only girl who professed her love to him and truly meant it. She who had been with him at his darkest hours and had always supported him. He went over to the young heiress and gave her a fully passionate kiss on the lips. It lasted for a full minute, and when they broke apart he whispered into her ear, "I love you too." Their moment was interrupted when the allies started coming over, giving him praise and thanks for ending the terrible conflict. Killer B was in the front, the Hachibi Jinchuriki giving his fellow container a big grin and a thumbs up. The rest of the Rookie 11, including Sasuke, were next, and even the brooding Uchiha gave him a nod of acknowledgement. The line went on and on, with even the newly freed Bijuu standing in the background giving their approval to the young chosen one, their father's prophecy fulfilled at last. Hinata was clutching onto his hands while B was giving him a staggering slap on the back when it happened. Like a demon bent on revenge, Obito Uchiha had risen from where he fell, obviously not long to this world but at the moment very much alive. Hinata and B stood protectively at Naruto's side while the other shinobi got ready to finish the man. Obito coughed out a stream of blood and said, "Well done, Naruto. You've stopped me from achieving my goals. Be warned though, others will follow in my footsteps to bring this world to heel." Naruto gave his ever-confident smile and said boldly, "If they do, I'll be sure to be there to stop them, believe it." Obito gave a rattling chuckle as he said, "Such arrogance. You may have stopped my dreams, but I'll make sure you never achieve yours." Kamui, while no longer the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails, Obito's dying body still held onto some of the beast's lingering chakra. This chakra was enough to superpower Obito's space-time technique to the point where it could shatter the barrier between realities themselves. Naruto, Hinata, and B all tried to move out of the way of the attack, but the pull was too strong. Soon, all 3 were sucked into the portal, leaving not a trace behind before any of the other ninja could stop what was happening. All those in the area stared in shock as their hero and comrade was whisked away in the blink of an eye. Their gaze was only diverted when they heard a resounding thump behind them to see Obito's body hit the ground and remain still, a satisfied smile on his scarred face. Everyone from the shinobi world would remember this day, for it was both the beginning of peace to spread across the elemental nations now that all the shinobi had aligned with one another, and also one of its darkest for the loss of 3 of the greatest shinobi to ever live. Many mourned and celebrated their victory, and the trio of heroes' deaths. Even the Bijuu had wept for the loss of their brother and their savior before going to help the villages fulfill their father's dream of peace. Little did everyone know, none of them had died, but had been transported into another dimension. Scene break. In a dimension of utter nothingness, aptly named the Zone of Silence, a blue-haired hedgehog named Sonic grunted. Today had been one strange happening after another. It all started when his friend Rotor Walrus had called his friends together, the Naho Freedom Fighters, to the computer room in their secret base located deep in the Great Forest. The Freedom Fighters had been formed ever since Dr. Ivo Robotnik had taken over the kingdom of Mobotropolis and had driven out or roboticized into mindless drones to serve the tyrant. Their group consisted of himself, Rotor, Sally Acorn the princess and leader of the Freedom Fighters, his best friend Miles Tails Prower, Bunny Rabbit, and Antoine Galette. Rotor had called them to the computer room because the camera he had set earlier into the zone had come back with some interesting images. What appeared to be a dark knight, no it wasn't Batman, was seen going through the zone, and this discovery led Rotor to find out that mysterious energy waves were being detected over the now-named city of Robotropolis that were affecting the zone. Deciding that whatever it was, if it involved Robotnik it probably wasn't a good thing. Deciding to put a stop to old Robobot's plans before they could cause any damage, Sonic had raced straight into the heart of the city using his super speed. After tying up Robotnik's nephew Snively and destroying the beam generating the strange waves, Sonic thought that he had an easy victory. Turns out, he just made things a whole lot worse. The beam he destroyed was actually what was keeping the zone stable, and without it the Zone of Silence would soon merge with their plane of existence, destroying the entire planet of Mobius. Robotnik had explained the situation to the speedy hedgehog, and gave him an energy inhibitor that needed to be activated inside the zone in order to stop its advance. Despite trusting the doctor about as far as he could throw him, and given the man's weight that wouldn't be far at all. He had no choice but to take the inhibitor back to his fellow freedom fighters and enter the zone together. Once inside the zone, they had been immediately met by the knight from Rotor's video feed, and as it turns out the man was a terrible host to uninvited guests. The man sent an energy bolt from his lance straight at Sonic, causing the blue blur to give a grunt as he dodged in the weightlessness of the zone. Quickly Sonic used his speed to knock out all of the knight's demonic-looking minions before the being could react. Sally was then able to land a sneak attack on the knight, knocking him off his horse and forcing him to lose his helmet. The freedom fighters were shocked as they saw that their assailant was none other than King Maximilian Acorn, the missing king of Mobotropolis and Sally's father. It turns out the man had lost all recollection of the group and seemed to be under some sort of spell as he continued his assault. Sonic was able to dodge the amnesiac's assault long enough for him to speed over to the right place in the zone and activate the inhibitor, causing a massive explosion. The group of young heroes were almost blown past the portal that led back to their world, but fortunately Rotor was able to launch a grappling hook from the entrance that they were able to grab onto. The group was safely pulled back into their dimension, but King Max was nowhere to be found. Sally briefly mourned the fact that she wasn't able to rescue her father from his imprisonment, but her friends did their best to cheer the princess up. "Don't worry, Sal, we'll find out how to rescue him." "That's a promise of a lifetime," assured Sonic. Rotor nodded and said, "And we'll figure out what happened and set things right." Suddenly, there was a loud noise coming from the zone portal and the FF turned to look as a series of sparks started to shoot out from the portal. What is happening?" stuttered Antoine. "I think the backlash from the inhibitor is causing some momentary breach in the zone portal. Everyone stay back in case there's any more side effects," shouted Rotor. Suddenly the center of the portal gained a rippling effect, almost like reality was becoming a whirlpool, and 3 beams of light shot out of the disturbance. The first 2 seemed to speed out of the base and into the distance while the last one crashed right in front of the startled FF, causing Antoine to let out a manly scream and jump into Bunny's arms. The portal then stopped smoking and the distortion vanished into nothingness. The smoke caused from the impact of the beam of light suddenly lifted and a figure was shown in the center of a small crater in the floor. Tails, being the curious young fox that he was, used his twin tails to form a helicopter effect allowing him to hover over to the figure. Sally called out to the youngest member of the team to be careful while Tails gave her a thumbs up. Tails was right above the figure when he caught a good glimpse at the mysterious being. It appeared to be a young overlander boy, not much older than himself, and he was out cold. The boy had spiky blonde hair and, strangely enough, 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. The boy wore burnt orange clothing and had on open-toed sandals while wearing pouches at his side and a headband on his forehead that had what appeared to be a stylized leaf on its center. What was concerning was that the boy's clothing seemed slightly too big for him, and it looked torn and bloody, most likely coming from the multitude of cuts on his body. Tails called out in a panic, "Aunt Sally, come quick. He needs help." The group came over and, quickly getting over their shock at seeing an overlander child of all things in their secret base, took note of the boy's injuries. "Sonic, get him to the med bay on the double," Sally ordered in a no-nonsense tone of voice. Giving a nod, the Quickster carried the boy bridal style and sped off to the group's medical facility on the other side of the base and handed over the unconscious blonde to the group's resident doctor, Dr. Quack, while explaining the situation to the best of his abilities. Quack, despite his name, took his profession very seriously and went to examine the mysterious patient, regardless of his origins. Knowing he was being dismissed, Sonic went outside the room and met the other FF who had just arrived. They stood outside the med bay in an awkward silence for a minute or two before Sonic, always having the shortest amount of patience, decided to break the ice and asked, "So, where do you think he came from, huh?" Rotor took on a thoughtful pose and pondered, "Well, he appeared right after that strange ripple appeared in the zone door, so I'm almost positive he came from that. What caused the ripple though? I've no idea." Sally took out a handheld computer and said, "Nicole, were you able to pick up anything from what happened back there?" A smooth female voice came from the computer and said in a monotone, "Well, Sally, I was able to pick up serious zone activity before the child appeared. Roughly 50% of it came from the backlash of the zone of silence being stabilized while the other 50% came from unknown origins. The child himself seems to have been heavily bathed in the energy released from the 2 sources. However, I cannot at this time determine if there will be any side effects caused by this or if the side effects have already taken place, sorry." Tails decided to give his 2 cents. Maybe he was a prisoner in the zone like King Max is? Rotor though gave a shake of his head. While it is possible, it doesn't explain what that second energy source was or what those other beams of light were. Antoine then asked hesitantly, "Do you think he's a spy for Robotnik?" There was an uneasy silence after that question for a moment before Bunny answered, "I don't think so, Sugartwan. I doubt the doc's clever enough for something like this, and besides, the other overlanders ain't on good terms with him since he helped us defeat them during the Great War. Plus, if he was a spy, I doubt he'd be all wounded like he was. Poor kid's been through a lot, I reckon. I guess the best we can do is question him when he wakes up and hope for the best," said Sonic, not liking the fact he'd have to wait even more for answers on their mysterious guest. It was another 5 minutes before Dr. Quack came out of the operating room with a neutral look on his face. "So, what's up, Doc?" asked Bunny. Couldn't resist. The duck doctor sighed and said, "Well, fortunately most of the cuts weren't serious, and are already healing at an astonishing rate." He had a few minor fractures on several bones, but they already seem to be healing, so I'd give it a week tops before they're fully healed. The biggest thing wrong with him seems to be pure exhaustion, like he'd been working nonstop for days. His body needs time to rest, and by my estimates, he should be up and about in 2 to 3 days. The others nodded at the doctor's assessment, and decided that they'd take turns watching over the boy until he woke up in order to make sure he didn't try anything that would harm himself or others when he awoke. Scene break. On the floating land mass named Angel Island, a red-furred echidna named Knuckles was alerted by his wards that covered the island. Someone or something was trying to enter the sacred island. The Guardian quickly took a tube to the surface to see what he was up against. Knuckles' jaw dropped when he saw a beam of light heading straight for him. Quickly dodging out of the way, the echidna just barely avoided the beam striking him in the head, and the light raised a dust cloud where he was once standing. Cautiously going over to the newly formed crater with his spiked knuckles bared, Knuckles looked down into the hole and saw what appeared to be a young, dark-skinned overlander that was dressed in white and was wearing a pair of dark shades over his eyes, blocking them from view. The boy seemed to have a tattoo of a horn on his left cheek and a strange symbol tattooed on his right arm. The boy's hair was white and he had an equally white headband with what appeared to be clouds on the metal plating. The boy's clothes seemed too big for him, and he seemed to have cuts and bruises littering his body. Knuckles also noticed by his breathing that the boy seemed knocked out. Knuckles looked at his new guest with confusion. "Now where did you come from?" he whispered. Scene break. In the frozen wasteland of Mobius, a man and a half-metal beast were walking through a large castle built in the stony side of a mountain. Suddenly, the beast let off a deep growl and the much smaller man turned to his companion and asked, "What's wrong, Eddie?" The beast just let out another growl before dashing off to the entrance to the castle with the smaller figure quickly hobbling behind it. Eddie gave a grunt as he opened the door to the castle, and both he and the other figure's eyes widened when they saw a beam of light heading straight for them. The beam crashed in front of the two figures while the larger of the two crouched protectively over the smaller one. After the cloud of snow settled, the smaller figure placed a comforting hand on Eddie's arm and the two walked over to the crash site. The mysterious man let out a gasp as he saw a young girl with dark hair and slightly baggy-looking clothing lying in the crater. The girl had a slight gash on her forehead from the impact and started shivering from the intense cold from the howling winds whipping around her. "Oh my, what in the world happened to you, my dear?" asked the smaller figure in awe before turning to the larger figure and saying, "Eddie, take her to the guest room and fetch my medical bag, please." The giant nodded before gently picking the girl up and carrying her back to the castle. If either figure stopped to listen over the howl of the Arctic winds, they could hear the girl mutter a single word: Naruto. Little did anyone on the planet Mobius know was that the events of today were going to rock the planet to its core and change the course of history, sparking the legend of the yellow flash and the blue blur. Chapter 2. Naruto groaned as he sat up, recognizing the place he awoke as his mindscape, if the giant nine-tailed fox was any indication. The young hero then shook his head to clear out the cobwebs before the events before his blackout came rushing back. With a start, Naruto turned to his foxy friend and said in a panicked tone, "Kurama, what happened? Is everything all right?" The big fox let out a rumbling sigh and said, "No, everything's not all right, Naruto. That blasted Uchiha seems to have gotten the last laugh after all." Looking increasingly worried, Naruto asked, "What do you mean? We're alive, aren't we?" "Yes, we're alive, but we're no longer in our dimension anymore." Noticing the confused look on his host's face, the Biju elaborated. "While that Kamui technique would normally send someone to some sort of pocket dimension, as your sensei explained, that man's power had been altered by the Ten Tails chakra. From what I can determine from the outside world, we're in a completely separate universe from that. I doubt even your mentor's Kamui could reach us here." Naruto looked shocked at that revelation, and then he had a cloud of depression settle over him. Kurama, noticing his host's despair, decided to comfort the boy in his own blunt way. "Shed your tears, well. I doubt any of your friends would want you to be put down like this, especially after you managed to save the world from Madara and that wannabe imposter of his like you had promised." Naruto nodded, wiping his tears away. Kurama was right. His family/friends would never want him to wallow like this. Instead, Naruto turned his attention to the Kyuubi to discuss their current situation. "So Kurama, do you know of a way to get back to our dimension?" Naruto couldn't help but show a sliver of hope in his voice. Kurama frowned. "There could be different ways we could leave this dimension, but the main problem is that there are an infinite amount of dimensions in existence. It could take us an eternity to find the right one, and that's if we're lucky. Plus, even if we did find it, I'm not even sure we could get back. Not to mention the possibility that time might flow differently in this world. For all we know, every day we spend here could be months or years that pass back in our world. I can't even feel my other siblings besides Gyuki, so it's safe to say that our own dimension is far away from here." That small amount of hope that Naruto held onto was crushed as quickly as it came. He took a moment to collect himself. Taking in a deep breath, he exhaled, turning his attention back to the fox. Then something the tailed beast had said registered in his mind. "Wait, you said you could feel Gyuki, so that means B is here as well?" Kurama gave a nod of his large head and said yes, and from what I could tell from when that technique hit us, that vixen of yours was transported here too. I can tell that they are far away now, however, because their chakra signatures are very faint. Naruto's mind was racing. So B and Hinata are here too? Okay, first thing we need to do is figure out where we are, and then find both of them. Can you sense anything going on in the real world, Kurama? Naruto's depression had slowly dissipated by this time. You see, ninja in general are trained to expect never returning home from a mission, so it was easier for him to adapt. That and his optimistic nature wouldn't let him stay depressed for long. Even if he couldn't find a way now, he'd keep trying to find a way back if it took him the rest of his life. Believe it. After all, he was still alive, and as long as he had breath he wouldn't give up. The fox gave another nod and seemed to be focusing on something before saying, "From what I can tell, we're in some sort of hospital and are surrounded by different beings, none of which feel human. They also have fairly weak chakra signatures, around the size of civilians from the elemental nations. I can't feel much negative emotions going around, so it is possible they're not hostile. Don't make any assumptions yet, brat. Also, I'm sensing that whatever energies you picked up from entering this world have altered your body somewhat." By the time Kurama was done with his observations, Naruto was staring at the fox wide-eyed and mouth agape. "What do you mean altered? I didn't grow a second head or something, did I?" the boy cried as he frantically started searching his body for any abnormalities. Kurama's sweat dropped at the Jinchuriki's actions and said in a deadpan, "No, nothing like that, though a second head would hopefully make you smarter." The fox ignored Naruto's indignant "hey," and continued, "And you can't see the alterations yet because they've only occurred to your real body, and in your mindscape your body is only how you perceive it to be. Don't worry about it though, because I sense that it's nothing extreme. Speaking of which, I notice your body has almost completely recovered from the war. Your wound should have healed by now, and all that remains is for your body to regain its strength, which may take a while." Naruto, after calming down a bit from his little scare, looked at the fox questioningly. "So how long do you think it'll take to get my strength back?" Kurama looked thoughtful. "I'd say a month, maybe 2. Your body went beyond its limit during the war by fighting for 3 days straight, and using my chakra so frequently. You can still use most of your abilities, but not as much, and some may be a little weaker for a time. I feel you'll be well enough to awaken in an hour, so we should use this opportunity to discuss what we should tell the locals if they are deemed trustworthy enough." Naruto gave a nod of confirmation, and the two made their plans. When it came time for Naruto to awaken, Kurama gave Naruto some last words of advice. "Now remember, Naruto, only take people here to explain the situation if they're trustworthy, and you feel they need the full explanation. Oh, and before I forget," at this the fox gave a devious smirk, "enjoy going through puberty again, brat." Before Naruto could even begin to question what Kurama meant by this, he found himself fading out of his mindscape to the sounds of Kurama's roaring laughter. Scene break. Naruto sat up and blinked at the bright lights in his face. Noticing the sterile conditions the room was in, Naruto came to one conclusion. "I'm in a hospital, great," he thought sarcastically. Well, at least this meant the people who found him weren't initially hostile. Added to the fact that he wasn't tied up made the boy think he got off pretty easily. He was alone in the room, but the blonde noticed a presence outside the door to the room, so at least his hosts left guards. It was then, though, that he took notice of his body. Everything seemed normal, but for some reason he felt smaller. Looking into the full-length mirror in the room, Naruto gaped as his 12-year-old self stared back at him. Somehow, he had been reverted back into a preteen. Naruto then remembered Kurama's parting words and laughter before our hero acted accordingly. Scene break. It had been a few days since the incident with the Zone of Silence, and since the FF's mysterious guest had appeared. It was Sonic's turn to watch over the Overlander for the next few minutes, and the doctor was busy attending to other patients at this time. The past few days had been quiet, with old Robotnik keeping his regular antics on hold for now. Not that Sonic was complaining or anything, because even heroes need rest now and again, but man was he bored. For one who loves action, he really just wished something exciting would happen. The scream was heard all throughout Knothole, and soon the entire FF was inside the mysterious patient's room to see what had happened. They all nearly face-planted at the sight that greeted them. The boy was up, it seemed, and he was for some reason repeatedly banging his head against the wall, and appeared to be saying, Why? I thought I only had to go through this once, why?" This went on for a few minutes before Sally decided to take the initiative and cleared her throat, causing the blonde to finally take notice of his guests, with a huge lump on his forehead. Naruto stared at his assortment of guests with open curiosity. His first thought was that they were some type of summons, but that seemed unlikely since Kurama had said they were in a completely different dimension. He then noticed that the animals appeared to have human-like appearances and were wearing the odd assortment of clothes. The first he noticed was the one who cleared their throat. He guessed it was female, judging from the slightly curvy figure and feminine hairstyle on her head, and appeared to be some sort of humanoid squirrel or chipmunk with brownish fur that had a tannish tone on the face and chest with burnt red hair on the top, and was wearing an open vest similar to a Chunin vest, only blue, and matching boots. The next was what appeared to be a rabbit with gold-colored fur and matching hair, who also appeared feminine, but what really stuck out was that both her legs and her one arm seemed to be replaced by metallic limbs, making Naruto think she must have been in an accident at one point. Next in line seemed to be a walrus of some sort, but with purple fur with a cream-colored stomach, and was easily the tallest of the group, and he, Naruto guessed he was male due to lack of any female anatomy, wore a utility belt over his shoulder and a yellow cap on his head. Seemingly hiding in the back was a canine-like being that also seemed to be male, and had tan fur with yellow slicked hair on his head, who wore what Naruto guessed to be a decorative military uniform unlike any he'd seen before, and was the only one clutching a weapon, a sword, though Naruto could easily tell the being was the most cowardly-looking member of the group with how he was shaking so hard his knees were knocking together. Then, to Naruto's surprise, he saw what appeared to be a two-tailed fox that eerily reminded him of Kurama. The fox also appeared male and had golden-orange fur with white on his chest, face, and the tips of his tails, and appeared to be the smallest and youngest of the group, judging from the look of childish curiosity on his face. Finally, the one who actually stuck out the most in the group was what appeared to be a blue-furred hedgehog with stylized spines running down his back. The hedgehog wore white gloves and running shoes, had tan fur on his stomach, face and arms, and also had an air of confidence that Naruto felt that he could relate to. Naruto then noticed that while all seemed to be regarding him with curiosity, some, namely the hedgehog, squirrel, and dog-like being, were all in ready stances where they could react in a moment's notice. It was then he realized that they must have had some experience with combat, because they were judging to see if he was a threat or not. Fortunately, Naruto could not sense any negative intentions form the group, so he had no intentions of fighting them if they weren't going to attack him. Figuring to break the awkward silence, Naruto raised a hand in greeting and said, "Yo." That seemed to relieve some of the tension that had been building, and the occupants of the room visibly relaxed. The squirrel stepped forward and said in a clearly feminine voice, "Hello, my name is Sally Acorn, leader of the Naruto Freedom Fighters. May I ask who you are and how you came to be here?" Naruto sat back down on the bed before bowing his head in greeting. Because of Tsunade's etiquette lessons that she literally beat into the boy's head, Naruto knew that situations like this called for a certain level of respect. Looking at the now named Sally, strange name, Naruto said politely, "Hi there, my name's Naruto Uzumaki, genin of the village hidden in the leaves. Was it you guys who helped treat my wounds and got me to this hospital?" While a bit confused what the now named Naruto, strange name, meant by genin and wondering where there was a place called the village hidden in the leaves, Sally smiled and replied, "Yes, your entrance gave us all quite a start." The blue-furred hedgehog then interrupted and said in a joking tone, "If by start you mean and screaming like a 4-year-old girl and jumping into Bunny's arms, Sal." This caused the canine group member, who Naruto guessed was Ant, to blush furiously and sputter out denials, while the rest of the group, including Naruto, chuckled at his expense. Sally then gave a slight cough and said, "Well, joking aside, I guess introductions are in order. As I said, my name is Sally Acorn, and the jokester over there is Sonic the Hedgehog." The now named Sonic gave a two-fingered salute. "This is Rotor Walrus." Rotor gave a nod in acknowledgement. "Bunny Rabbit." Bunny gave a wave with her robotic hand. "Antoine Colette." Antoine tried to make himself look important and intimidating, failing both miserably. "And this is Miles Prower. Everyone calls me Tails," the young fox said happily. "And as I've said earlier, we're the Naruto Freedom Fighters, working against the tyranny of Dr. Robotnik." She then proceeded to give a general overview on the Great War and the following consequences after noticing the boy's confused look. After satisfying Naruto's curiosity, Sally continued, "Now, could you please tell me how you got here?" Sally figured that until they knew more about their guest, it would be best to keep a lid on the fact she was also a princess, and also about their current location. Naruto thought for a second and came to a conclusion. Since this group hadn't done anything not to earn his trust, and if he heard right they were also fighting a battle against a megalomaniac like he was, then it would be best to answer partially while keeping vital information until he decided how they'd handle it. So with that, Naruto explained his situation. He told the group on how he was a ninja from the elemental nations who had been fighting a battle against a man who hoped to control the entire world and had won the fight but was thrown out of his dimension as a result. After giving the edited version of the story, the other members of the FF looked thoughtful. They all knew a bit about different dimensions thanks to both the Zone of Silence and the time Sonic ran into an evil parallel world version of himself, so they took the news better than most. Most of the FF actually held some respect for the dimension-traveling ninja because it seemed like his struggle was similar to theirs. Seriously, did every dimension have some sort of evil megalomaniac bent on stripping people of their wills and ruling the planet, across the multiverse? Multiple villains sneezed before going back to their plotting? Antoine, however, decided to act like a big blowhard and said cockily, "Et do you have a proof of this? How do we know HEZ not an overlander spy? Besides, he barely looks like he could fight HEZ way out of the wet paper bag, let alone an entire war. I feel ET is a bit too convenient that he came from a different one just as we closed TH zone that the doctor built." Naruto was busy wondering what the crap kind of accent the cowardly FF had while Sonic turned towards Antoine and said irritably, "Geez Ant, could ya give the guy a break? I mean, he probably just went through a lot and I doubt right now he needs you grilling him. Besides, I've been smashing bots since I was 9 and this kid's 12. Naruto gained a tick mark at this, so he could just as easily fought in a war as TH next guy. Antoine then proved further that he was a paranoid stick in the mud by continuing to argue his point with the blue blur, which quickly went into a bickering squabble between the two. Naruto was about to interrupt when he felt the familiar pull of Kurama on his mind. The fox told him, "Well, I think that this group should be trustworthy enough to show them the whole story. Besides, scaring the wits out of that stupid dog is too good of an opportunity to pass up." Naruto mentally smirked with the fox. Turns out they had more in common than he first thought, and decided that if he was going to get these freedom fighters to completely trust him, he might as well give them the benefit of a doubt. Focusing back into the real world, where somehow the bickering had resulted in a dust cloud as the two FF members got into a mock fight, Naruto's sweat dropped and coughed to regain the audience's attention. Once the dust cloud settled down to reveal Sonic standing on Antoine's back, Naruto said, "I can see how my story might seem a bit crazy, but I actually can prove it. All you guys need to do is grab my hands." Slowly, the FF members decided that they'd see what the boy's proof was, and they all touched his hands. Suddenly, the group found themselves no longer in Knothole's medical bay but in some type of sewer-like landscape. They turned to the strange boy who brought them here, and he said, "This is my mindscape, where you can see all my thoughts and memories. I brought you here because I think you are all trustworthy enough, and I hope to earn your own trust with this." The group then turned around when they suddenly felt a presence behind them. All of the FF stared in open-mouthed shock, or in Antoine's case turned pale and fainted, as they witnessed a nine-tailed fox that easily towered over the largest building in Robotropolis with piercing red eyes, a human-like torso and forepaws, and both claws and teeth that even made Sonic pause in any thoughts on fighting the beast. The fox then spoke in a deep baritone voice, "Hello there, mortals. I think we should talk." 3 months after Naruto landed in Mobius, the Freedom Fighters, plus their latest member, the dimensional refugee ninja Naruto Uzumaki, were taking a moment to relax from the constant fight against Robotnik and his cronies to watch an old horror movie entitled Night of the Living Dead, Mobian style. Some of the Freedom Fighters, Sonic, Naruto, Rotor, Bunny, were watching the grisly murder by zombie scenes with almost relaxed poses, while the others, Tails, Antoine, Sally, seemed ready to jump at the slightest provocation. During a particularly bloody scene, Sally grabbed onto Sonic's arm for comfort, while Antoine aimed to grab Sally's arm, but ended up grabbing Bunny's. As the ending credits rolled, Rotor went to turn off the screen before turning to the others and said, "So, what did you guys think?" Sonic seemed to think for a moment before saying, "Well, the movie was pretty cool, but those zombies were so slow. If I went up against them, the problem would have ended before you'd blink." He finished with a slightly cocky grin. Rolling his eyes at her friend's antics, Bunny said, "It was kinda scary at some parts, but I reckon we've gone through scarier though." Antoine decided to ham it up and said boldly, "Ha? That is right, mon amaze. We have conquered many more arable foes than those zombies. In fact, it wouldn't even be a challenge for even one of us." Naruto snorted and snarked, "Oh really, Ant? Then what was with you jumping every 5 seconds? Ignoring Antoine's indignant stutters, Naruto gained a thoughtful expression. Those zombies kinda remind me of the Edo Tensei summons I fought in the 4th Shinobi War, except they were way faster and more deadly than those things." Tails seemed startled at this tidbit of information. Nervously, the young fox said shakily, "There's no such things as Z-zombies in this world, alright, Aunt Sally?" Before the princess could give Tails any sense of comfort, Antoine scoffed, "Faye. As if such a thing existed. Do not pay any attention to the blonde idiot, Tails. There is nothing that can raise the dead, except your singing, right, Aunt?" Sonic said jokingly. Antoine gave a huff and left the room to go to bed. As the others left the room, Naruto went over to Tails and started whispering in the aerial ace's ear. After he finished, the two foxy freedom fighters gave each other matching evil grins. The next day, Sally Acorn considered herself a patient girl. However, it was things like this that caused her to question just how patient she was. Sonic was still laughing, Rotor looked amused, Bunny looked torn between amusement and sympathy, and Antoine looked cold, wet, and a strange blend of anger, fear, and constipation, although Naruto had theorized to Tails that last one was just his default look. The two mischief makers were found laughing their butts off in Rotor's lab around a giant viewing screen. Rotor was the one to find the cameras hidden in and around Antoine's home. The footage on said cameras was as follows. Antoine was in the shower, you could tell because of the running water, and his off-key horrible singing. Next we see Antoine exit said shower with a towel wrapped around him, only to walk into a room filled with undead Mobians moaning brains, after which we see a now nearly ghost-white Antoine scream in a shrill girly octave and make a mad dash for the door at a speed that almost got Sonic's respect. The footage then shifts to the outside where we see a streaking Antoine run madly to and up the nearest tree while the zombified Mobians shamble around said tree and attempt to climb one another before dispelling in a puff of smoke, and you could hear Tails' laughter coming from behind the now shaking camera, showing it was he who took the potentially blackmailing video. Sally leveled a glare at the two offending parties. "Well? What do you two have to say for yourselves? I honestly didn't know that Antoine could run that fast, Aunt Sally," said Tails, opting to look completely astonished at what he'd seen. "Yeah, with skills like that he might even make Chunin in Konoha," remarked Naruto, looking decidedly pleased. At this point Sonic fell over laughing again while banging his fist on the floor with tears in his eyes. Sally then leveled him with a glare. "Oh come on, Sal. This is comedy gold," Sonic said in defense. "You mean orange," said Tails, piping in while looking over to Naruto. "Yeah, orange is much cooler color than gold," said Naruto, nodding in complete agreement with a very serious look on his young face. Sally sighed while rubbing off the budding headache she could feel building and said tiredly, "Do you have anything serious to say for yourselves?" "Just this." With that Naruto, Tails, Sonic, and the rest of the Freedom Fighters turned to the readers and gave a wave before shouting out, "Happy Halloween everybody." The Freedom Fighters stared up in awe and shock at the titanic, multi-tailed fox towering above them, minus Antoine, who was still out cold and pale white. Sonic, in order to uphold his cool guy position in the group, was trying his best to look completely calm, but you could tell by the slight tremble in his spikes and shoes that he was a millisecond away from bursting into action. Tails was looking up at the huge fox in something akin to awe, yet he was positioning himself behind Sonic with shaking legs while muttering under his breath, "Don't be scared, act like Sonic, don't be scared, act like Sonic," over and over again. Rotor looked both scared and intrigued, as if the freedom fighter scientist was trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Bunny had positioned herself in front of Antoine's prone form with her mechanical fist cocked back and ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Finally, Sally kept up the calm facade that she had learned in her years of fighting Robotnik and asked with only a slight amount of uncertainty, "Naruto, could you kindly explain where we are and what that points at Kurama is?" Naruto gave the princess a calming, if slightly cheeky, grin and said, "Well, to answer your first question, we are in my mindscape as I've said previously, and that also points at Kurama is my friend Kurama, the nine-tailed fox." The Titanic fox gave a lazy wave with his clawed hand/paw, which the freedom fighters couldn't help but notice was large enough to squash them all like bugs at once, and gave a cheeky grin before saying in his rumbling voice, "Yo, it's nice to meet you." The normalcy of that greeting almost had most of the FF going for the mother of all facepalms, while Sonic settled for giving a good-natured laugh. It was clear, in his relatively simple way of thinking, that if something like Kurama doesn't try to rip your face off immediately, chances are that it's okay. Plus he trusted Naruto. Despite not knowing the strange overlander child for long, the Quickster felt as if he'd found a sort of bond with the blonde boy, as if he'd found a long-lost brother or something. Antoine started to come to, and the moment he did and saw Kurama's scary, grinning face above him, he gave a startled yelp and jumped right into Bunny's arms like a certain cartoon Great Dane. Naruto gave a chuckle at observing the FF's reactions before deciding to get into serious mode. He cleared his throat, and once he was certain he had the Mobian's attention, he began, "You see, the reason I brought you here is because I need your help, and this is the best way for me to gain your trust. The thing is, I actually am not from this world." Before the ninja could continue, Tails piped in, "Wait, does that mean you're some kind of alien?" Ignoring Ant's whimper at that comment, Naruto calmly said to the young fox, "No, Tails, but I am from a different dimension, which when you think about it is almost as unbelievable. That aside, through certain circumstances, me and two others got sucked into this world and we got separated. Also, I'm not sure if there is any way back to my world. That's why I need your help, because I'm not from this world and I have no idea on what I could be getting into." We gestures to himself, and Kurama, who was lazing in the background, decided the best way to find out about where we are was to ask some of the more trustworthy locals, and as far as I can tell, you guys fit that description to AT. "Wait, hold up," Sonic said with an uncharacteristically thoughtful look on his face. "You said you're from a different dimension? Do you mean you're from one of the zones? And come to think of it, when you mentioned two others, did you mean the two other beams of light that came out of the same time-space thingamabob that you came out of? Lastly, how did you come to the conclusion that we're trustworthy?" The other looked at the blue hero in slight shock at the surprisingly insightful questions he came up with, while Naruto looked equally uncharacteristically thoughtful. "It could be, I mean, I've never really heard of zones before, but that could just be what you call other dimensions, which I've never actually been to before. As for the other two beams of light, I'd wager they were my friends, since I can't think of who else got sucked into that portal with me. In regards to your trustworthiness, let's just say I have ways of reading a person's intentions, and you all seem fine by me." The FF nodded their heads in thoughtful contemplation, while Kurama simply smirked at his host and snarked, "Heh, not a bad guess, brat. Maybe going through dimensions increased your intelligence." Ignoring Naruto's indignant shouts, the colossal fox turned back to the FF and said in his booming voice, "We'll be willing to answer any of your questions, freedom fighters, just so long as they are in reason." And so it went for several hours. The freedom fighters, namely Sally with Rotor, asked as many questions as they felt they needed to ask the mysterious duo, and they, in turn, answered to the best of their abilities. The Mobians learned many things from the dimension travelers: what they were, what their world was like, how they got to their world. The list went on and on. The FF, in turn, answered the blonde and fox's questions in regards to their world, such as how it came to be in its current state, and what the situation was in regards to the fight with Robotnik. At the end, the entire group was feeling understandably tired, and then with the last of his strength, Obito used his Jubi-powered Kamui to suck in me, Hinata, and B. The next thing I know is that I woke up in a hospital with my 12-year-old body and apparently in a different dimension altogether. "It makes more sense now," Rotor said with a contemplative look on his tusked face. "The dimensional distortion caused from the zone of silence stabilizing must have acted as an anchor and interacted with the technique that you were trapped in, thus bringing you here. I can only assume that the chaotic energies that discharged from the event caused you to de-age as you did." Naruto nodded, as that was the best explanation he could think of, when suddenly he had a feeling of déjà vu before looking down a little and noticed Tails had gotten in front of him with an odd look on his face. The blonde Jinchuriki was about to ask the youngest FF what was wrong before Tails shouted out, "That was totally amazing. You're like a superhero," the young fox said with stars in his eyes. Sonic gave the blonde a cheeky grin with a thumbs up, signifying he agreed with his little buddy. Naruto then realized how he got the déjà vu feeling. It was the same feeling he got when Konohamaru and Inari first started looking up to him. Rubbing the back of his head sheepishly, Naruto said, "Well, kind of, yeah? To which Kurama sighed and gave his host a gentle flick over the head, which caused him to go sailing face first into a wall. Picking up his teeth, Naruto came over to the group and said, "So what happens now?" Sally looked thoughtful for a minute before saying, "Well, after you're fully recovered you can stay in Naruto for a while if you wish, and we'll be able to keep our eyes peeled for your friends. Though I must ask that you be discreet since the doctor has been sending out spy drones to locate us, and wouldn't hesitate to capture and interrogate you for information. Also while staying here you'll be expected to do some of the work around here to earn your keep, as everyone who lives here does. Finally, while in Knothole you'll be under surveillance for a while just to assure the citizens that you're not a spy for Robotnik." Both Naruto and Kurama gave a nod to the reasonable demands and the whiskered boy said with a grin, "And I'll also help when I can when you're fighting this robo guy, cause if there's one thing I can't stand is watching a wannabe dictator forcing the rights from the people. I swear I'll do everything in my power to help because that's my Nido, my ninja way." He finished while giving a nice guy pose. "If that's everything could you all get out of here? I'm tired of talking and could really use a nap right about now," Kurama grumbled in the background. The group nodded before Naruto gave a wave to the large fox and started to lead the FF out of the seal room to the exit of his mindscape. "So, should we be calling Kurama Tails now or not?" Antoine asked cheekily while grinning at Tails, causing the other FF to think the apocalypse was coming due to Antoine actually making a decent joke. Naruto chuckled and said, "If he heard you calling him that, Tuan, he'd probably crush you then eat you." He gave a full-blown laugh at the coyote's now pale and sweating face. The group found themselves back in the hospital room and was amazed that the clock showed that they were gone for no more than 3 minutes while in the mindscape it felt like 3 hours. Before the group could say or do anything next a loud rumble echoed through the room. Naruto had the decency to look sheepish as he said, I don't suppose I could get something to eat now could I?" The FF gave a laugh at that and headed out to get their newest friend some food before Dr. Quack could come back and kick them all out for disturbing his patient. Needless to say, life in Mobius was sure to get interesting. "Make ramen," said an irritated blonde. "Chili dogs," said an equally irritated blue hedgehog. "Ramen, chili dogs, ramen, chili dogs, would you both shut up?" screamed a frustrated Sally Acorn as she smashed the two heroes' heads together, unintentionally causing Sonic's chili dog to be dunked into Naruto's ramen. "You've got your ramen on my chili dog!" screamed Sonic, horrified. "You've got your chili dog in my ramen!" screamed a scandalized Naruto. They both looked between their mixed foods and each other several times before shrugging and digging into the mixed foods. "Hey, not bad," they chorused. Meanwhile, the other nearby members of the Freedom Fighters were fighting the urge to vomit and the blonde and brunette's odd food choices. Naruto stared around the base of the Knothole Freedom Fighters in awe. While not quite at the same grand scale as the Hidden Leaf, the forested location did give him a feeling of nostalgia. Naruto couldn't help but notice some of the other Mobians staring at him with mixed looks of curiosity and a bit of fear. It was to be expected, considering how past experience with overlanders had been less than pleasant for the animal-like species. First there was the war that nearly tore their world apart, and then with the rise of robotic let's just say Naruto didn't blame them for being suspicious. Fortunately, one of the things Naruto specialized in was getting people's opinions to change about him. Happily hovering next to the blonde ninja was Tails, who was eagerly acting as his tour guide since he was released from the hospital a few hours ago. Naruto was technically supposed to stay in for another day or two, but Dr. Quack could only take so many escape attempts before he was nearly pulling the feathers from his scalp and reluctantly released the whiskered boy early. Naruto enjoyed talking to the two-tailed fox, as his personality reminded the blonde much of what he was like as a child and they were technically the same age due to Naruto's passing through to their dimension. In the past few days since Naruto arrived, he'd gotten to know the Freedom Fighters fairly well since each one spent a few hours of the day talking to their blonde guest. Sonic was the definition of cool, and has a very laid-back, playful personality. Naruto enjoyed talking with him as much as he did with Tails, and the two became fast friends. Sally was what Naruto figured Tsunade was like in her youth, without the drinking and gambling problems. She was like the heart and soul of the group, and in many ways like what a mother was like. Bunny was the big sister of the group, always willing to help out and lend a shoulder, both flesh and machine, to lean on. Though Naruto did wish the cyborg rabbit would lay off trying to style his spiky hair. Rotor, Naruto thought, was a bit like a more motivated Shikamaru, in that he was wicked smart and a decent strategist. The walrus would spend many an hour asking Naruto for details about his world, and when that was done he'd offer to play the ninja in a game of chess, which was like shogi in his world, and won every time, much to the blonde's frustration. Antoine was the only one Naruto had any real problems with. The coyote had an ego as big as the Hokage monument, yet he was nearly as timid as Hinata was in her younger years, jumping at every little thing. Still, Naruto could tell Antoine had a good heart, and truly cared about his friends. As the eldest of the FF, Antoine probably thought that he needed to put on a brave front to comfort the younger members. Back to the present, Tails was currently showing the Dimensional Traveler some of the major locations of Knothole. While it was largely used as a base for the FF, Knothole itself was the size of a small village capable of holding over 100 Mobians if necessary. There were homes, some shops, and an advanced underground location hidden in limestone caverns, in case the upper area in the forest became compromised. While the citizens seemed peaceful enough, There was an underlying tension in the air. It reminded the young shinobi of the time briefly before the war, where everyone tried to act as if nothing was wrong in the eye of the storm. And here's the largest tree in that hole, Tails explained happily as he hovered around Naruto's head. It was a very interesting ability the young fox had, using his tails as a propeller of sorts to allow him flying capabilities. When Naruto had first saw the youngest freedom fighter's talent, he nearly choked on the ramen he was slurping and then asked Kurama jokingly if he could do something similar with his 9 tails, to which the larger fox irritably told the blonde to shut up. Tails continued, "This is where you can see everything in the Great Forest. It's so cool, and Aunt Sally told me this is one of the best ways to spot any of Robotnik's forces. Though sometimes I like to fly up here just to enjoy the view," he finished while rubbing the back of his head bashfully, a trait the human and the Mobian quickly found they shared when they were embarrassed. "That sounds really cool, Tails. It kinda reminds me of the Hokage monument back home," Naruto reminisced while thinking of all the times he'd climb his village's landmark just to see the amazing view over the whole village. He always sat on his, unknowingly, father's head and just spent hours looking out over the hidden leaf and all of its wonders. Naruto got a sudden idea and looked over at the hovering fox. "Hey, race you to the top," he challenged as he sped off towards the base of the tree. "You're on," Tails responded with enthusiasm as he darted towards the tree himself, only to stop and gawk a few seconds later when Naruto, instead of simply climbing the branches like the other Mobians would do, simply started to walk up the side of the tree as if he was still on flat ground. Shaking his head to regain some of his composure, the aerial ace of the freedom fighters zipped over to Naruto's current location on the side of the tree, taking note that some of the nearby Mobians were staring at the ascending boy in open-mouthed shock as he did something that seemed physically impossible. "Hey Naruto!" Tails called out to catch the blonde's attention. Naruto halted his ascent and cocked his head to look at the flying fox. "How are you doing that? Can all overlanders walk up trees too? Because I don't think my teacher ever mentioned that." Tails finished while looking at him with wide-eyed curiosity. Naruto briefly wondered what he was talking about before the ninja realized what he was doing differently. "Ah, yeah? You see, this is an exercise people of my world would do to gain chakra control," Naruto said in an explanatory way. "By focusing the chakra at the bottom of our feet, we create a bond against the surface, allowing us to stick." "I teach ya," Naruto continued, noting that Tails was more than likely about to ask just that. "But I don't think the beings of this world aren't trained in using chakra, and it'd take years of practice to even be at this level of chakra control." Naruto assumed the reason why beings of this world didn't have much chakra was due to a lack of a shinju, so they didn't have the same means of unlocking chakra like his people did. Tails looked both intrigued and then slightly crestfallen at that, but then he quickly brightened up. "That's okay, even without chakra I'll still beat you to the top," the twin-tailed fox said smugly before speeding off into the air. "Not if I can help it," Naruto called out while picking up his speed up the tree, both running up the side and jumping from branch to branch at a speed that most would be hard-pressed to follow. A few moments later, both Naruto and Tails were lying panting on a branch at the very top of the tall tree, exhausted by the strain they just put their bodies through. It was quiet for a few moments before Naruto idly commented, "You were right, Tails, this really is some view." Tails followed the ninja's line of sight at the wide expanse of forest before them, lit up by the midday sun, and sighed out happily, "Yeah, it is." They were up there for a few minutes before both their sensitive ears picked up the sounds of someone calling for them. "Sounds like Sally wants to see us," Naruto stated. "I can fly us down," Tails offered while his tails twitched behind his back like they were moments away from springing into action. "That's okay, we'll take the express route," Naruto grinned while grabbing Tails around the waist. "What are yo-wo?" Tails yelped as Naruto jumped down the tree, hopping from branch to branch to slow the fall before they both landed on the ground a few seconds later. Naruto let go of the fox and Tails exclaimed, "That was awesome. Can we do it again?" "There you boys are," said the voice that had been calling them as they turned around and saw Sally Acorn walking towards them. "Next time you want to go down a tree, try to do it in a way that doesn't nearly cause people to get a heart attack." The princess scolded with her eyes on the duo. "Yes ma'am," Naruto said with a mock salute which Tails mimicked at his side. "They're almost as bad as Sonic," Sally muttered under her breath as she repressed the urge to roll her eyes and then gestured for the two to follow her. "Come on, Rotor's calling for us." A few minutes later, all of the freedom fighters plus Naruto were gathered in the main control room located in the center of Knothole. The purple walrus, once he saw he had everyone's undivided attention, began. "We just got word from Uncle Chuck through the secure line that we're to send a small party to meet at the rendezvous point outside of Robotropolis. He sent us coordinates that I patched through to Nicole's system." Sally took out the small handheld computer and asked, "Did you receive them all right, Nicole?" A cool female voice sounded, "Yes, Sally. Analyzing coordinates now." When Naruto first saw some of the technology of Mobius, he was stunned. While a majority of the world was very in tune with nature, the technology that they did have made the things that came from the land of springs, formerly snow, look like outdated toasters. Especially Nicole. Naruto wasn't sure, but he thought he felt a spark of life coming from the mini AI. Snapping back to the present, Naruto had a question that had been nagging him since Sally called him. If you don't mind me asking, is it really okay for me to be here? I mean, this sounds like top secret stuff and I'm not a part of the team yet, am I?" The group turned to him and Sally gave him a warm smile. Don't worry, Naruto. After all you've shared with us, you have this group's trust. Plus, having your aid in our efforts will be a big help for us while we also keep an eye out for your friends. Yeah, don't sweat it, man, Sonic said with a casual wave. Anyone as way past cool as you is alright in our books. As far as I'm concerned, you're already a freedom fighter, at least on a parole basis. Seeing as the others weren't arguing, Naruto gave a happy grin. Thanks, guys. So who all's going on this mission? Rotor seemed to ponder it for a moment before he suggested. Personally, I'd pick you, Sally and Sonic for this mission. This most likely will involve a great need of stealth, and if your stories are to be believed, you've got that in spades. Sally's got Nicole so she can hack Robotropolis systems, and Sonic's speed can get you out of there quickly if things get hairy. That, added to the fact that it's Uncle Chuck they're meeting, makes Sonic's involvement a no-brainer. Sally nodded at the walrus assessment. Sounds good to me. It'll also be good experience for Naruto to see how we do things around here. Does this work for everyone else? Everyone nodded, though Antoine somewhat reluctantly and Tails looked like he wanted to volunteer but decided against it because he hadn't mastered stealth flying yet. Good, we leave in half an hour. Be sure to have everything you need with you, Sally said with a dismissal. Scene break, outskirts of Robotropolis 1. Outside an imposing metal city in one of its many waste dumps, Sonic, Sally, and Naruto waited patiently for Uncle Chuck. Sally seemed on edge, Naruto was calm yet alert, and Sonic was stretched out looking ready to take a nap. Deciding to break the silence, Naruto turned to Sally and asked, So who's Uncle Chuck anyway? Is that like a codename or? Sally was about to respond when Sonic interrupted with his eyes still closed. He's my uncle, Sir Charles the Hedgehog, though everyone calls him Uncle Chuck. He was captured by Robo but a few years ago, but we recently gave him his free will back. Now he's acting as a spy on the dock for us. Naruto nodded at that. When he was being debriefed on the world he was in, Naruto learned a fair share of Dr. Evil Robotnik. Apparently, he was some overlander who seemingly switched sides during the Great War and helped the Mobians obtain several decisive victories. Shortly after being named warlord, after the previous one mysteriously disappeared, the man had staged a coup against the kingdom, taking over and forcing the people to become robotic slaves for him. The tyrant even banished the king to a different dimension where he was currently held prisoner. Now the kingdom was a shadow of its former self, with Robotnik ruling with a literal iron fist. It was only thanks to the work of the freedom fighters and several other brave individuals that the evil doctor hadn't taken complete control of the world. Honestly, the man sounded worse than scum. It was even worse than Obito's and Madara's Eye of the Moon plan because, while their methods were all wrong, it was still for peace. Robotnik's actions are of someone who simply wishes to rule all, and not caring about who he crushed to get there. Back to the group, Sally started to get worried that they were in the wrong place while Sonic tried to comfort the princess, before a secret hatch suddenly opened up beneath where the blue hedgehog was lying, much to his displeasure. Naruto tensed, thinking it was an enemy, but relaxed when he saw Sally give an all-clear signal. Out of the hole came a blue hedgehog similar to Sonic, however there were a few key differences. One was that he had both blue eyes and a bluish tint to his nose. He also had large silver eyebrows and a mustache. Oh, and let's not forget that his body was made completely of metal. Oops. Sorry, nephew. I didn't know you were standing so close to the door. The robotic hedgehog said apologetically. As Sonic grumbled over his abused rear end, Sally walked over to the Robian. It's good to see you again, Uncle Chuck. What is this place? She asked, gesturing to the passageway Chuck came out of. It's my secret spy room, where I can observe Robotnik's plans undetected, Charles explained. He then noticed the one unknown of the group. Oh. And who might you be, young man? He questioned Naruto. Naruto gained his famous grin, and gestured to himself with his thumb. Name's Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you, old man. Sally was about to admonish their newest member when Chuck gave a bark of laughter. Ha! Old man, eh? Well, it's nice to meet someone other than my nephew with a sense of humor, the hedgehog said as he held out a robotic hand. The name's Sir Charles, but you can call me Uncle Chuck, everyone does. After the two shook hands, the Robian led them down to his secret hideout. I'd love to know how you kids got a new member, an overlander at that, but I'm afraid the story will have to wait for later. They reached a room filled with bleeping computers and the elderly hedgehog led them to one that seemed to have a Richter scale on the screen. If that's your heart rate UNC, you'd better see a mechanic. Sonic quipped as he peered at the monitor. I wish it was that simple, Sonic, but this is much more serious. According to these readings, the area is about to have a major seismic event. Chuck told them in a grim tone. You don't mean? Sally started as realization dawned on her, and her eyes widened. Yes, Sally, I mean that Robotropolis is about to experience a terrible earthquake. The older hedgehog explained urgently. Terrible? Remind me to kiss Mother Nature. Sonic exclaimed happily, thinking that Robotnik was about to be seriously shook up. Does Robotnik know about it? Sally asked in concern, noting that Chuck still seemed stressed over something. Yes, he plans on hovering above the city in one of his airships until the quake is over and then start rebuilding, said Charles. Sally pondered that for a moment. How can we take advantage of this? Well, while Robotnik's gone, Robotropolis will be defenseless, but only for a short while, Chuck informed them. Sonic beamed. Great. When you're as fast as I am, a short time is plenty of time for us to make our move. Are you thinking of setting up a trap for this Robotnik guy? Naruto asked. Because I've got some ideas that can make life very unpleasant for him when he gets back, he finished proudly. Uncle Chuck shook his head though. No, our main focus should be rescuing as many of the Mobians Robotnik turned into bots as we can. I need to deroboticize them before the quake occurs, otherwise they may not survive. Sally, Sonic and Naruto gained grave looks at this piece of information and they headed towards the exit that led to the city. When they left the bunker, there was the sound of a ship taking off and the group noticed a sky ship blasting off from the ground to a good distance away from the city. They quickly made their way into the city, which to Naruto looked like a more futuristic version of the Hidden Rain, and headed towards the main building that housed Robotnik's main lab. They reached a large metal door and Charles started trying the different codes to open it. When Robotnik left, he turned off all the machines in the city. If I can open this door, I can reactivate the deroboticizer and restore everyone to normal, the hedgehog explained. Then allow me to make a shortcut, Naruto stated as he slapped a piece of paper on the door and urged the group to move back. What are you? Sonic started before he noticed the paper started to burn and smoke before it went off in a miniature explosion. When the smoke cleared, it was revealed that the door had a small hole made in it, enough for the group to pass through one at a time. Sonic finished flabbergasted. Charles studied the ninja appraisingly before he turned to Sally. When this is over, I really look forward to hearing the story behind that kid, he said seriously, to which the princess nodded. The group was about to enter the room when suddenly the ground lurched under their feet. At first Naruto thought it was the result of an earth jutsu, but then Uncle Chuck cried out in warning, "It's starting!" The tremor was sharp but brief. Fortunately, the force of it had caused the small hole Naruto's exploding tag to expand further to the point the entire group could easily fit through all at once. As the others entered the building, Naruto subtly created a small group of shadow clones that sprinted off into the city, too. He then quickly followed behind the group as they went over to a large machine that Uncle Chuck identified as the deroboticizer. The hedgehog tripped in alarm to lure the transformed Modians into the building while he began tinkering with the machine. Uncle Chuck explained that he was setting the deroboticizer to overload, causing a blanket effect on the Robians in the ensuing explosion. Suddenly, a multitude of robotic Mobians started to spill into the room. As Charles prepared to throw the switch, Naruto and Kurama thought they felt something from the Robians that felt familiar. But before they could place the feeling, the metal hedgehog pulled the switch, causing a smoky explosion to fill the room. As the dust cleared, the Robians were shown to have been turned back into flesh and blood, though highly disoriented and confused. Uncle Chuck, though, remained in his metal body, as he explained that it would serve him better in remaining a spy on Robotnik. The freedom fighters led the liberated Mobians outside the building as the tremors grew in both frequency and strength. Once outside, things looked like they were about to get much more complicated as there were many more people with them now, and it would make evacuation much more difficult. Suddenly, their hopes rose as a plane piloted by Rotor landed near the building. There was a problem though. With so many escapees, there wasn't enough room on the plane for everyone to fit. After much debate and arguments, Naruto, Sonic, and Sally offered to stay behind to find their own way out of the city. As the plane left, our heroes started to quickly look for an exit to the shaking city. Sonic was in front, since his speed and reflexes allowed him to avoid any obstacles in the front. Sally was well protected in the middle of the group, guiding Sonic via Nicole's directions. Naruto brought up the rear, as his skills allowed him to guard the back and watch out for anything Sonic might have missed. As they passed under a building, a large chunk of rock suddenly fell and was heading straight for Sally's head. Luckily, Naruto noticed the shadow before it was too late. "Look out!" Naruto yelled as he quickly formed a clone that gave him a hammer throw towards the falling boulder. "Rasengan!" The dimensional traveler roared out as a ball of swirling blue chakra formed in his hand. Thrusting the attack forward, Naruto was able to turn the larger rock into a rain of dust and small pebbles, harmlessly falling to the ground. Sally and Sonic took a deep sigh of relief for the close call, both thinking that they owed the blonde shinobi. Nicole finished analyzing the area and found the safest route out of Robotropolis, showing it on her screen. Before the group could fully recover, the shaking started to increase tenfold. "We need to speed things up a bit," Sonic declared as he picked up Sally in a bridle position. He turned to the other member of the group and asked, "Think you can keep up with higher speeds?" Naruto smiled and cracked his neck, getting into a ready position. "Lead the way," was all he said. Sonic smiled back and started taking off at speeds that made him a blur to the untrained eye. Naruto, while not as fast, was able to keep pace fairly well with the speeding hedgehog. With both Sally and Nicole's direction, the duo was able to speed through the city while avoiding falling debris. Suddenly, a huge crack appeared in the ground just ahead of them to show a boiling pool of lava. With no other alternatives, the two speed demons got ready to jump for it when they noticed a large falling tower getting ready to crush them. Thinking fast, Naruto grabbed Sonic by the scruff of his spiny neck and gave a chakra full jump at the building. Sally gave a shout of alarm while Sonic looked slightly more calm yet tense at the same time. They reached the descending tower and Naruto planted his feet on its side, using his chakra to stay in place. Running over the tower's surface, Naruto reached the other side and jumped off the tower before it crashed onto the ground. Once they safely landed, Naruto and Sonic nodded to each other before speeding off once more right out of the crumbling city. Next day in Knothole, there was a large celebration going on. Not only was Uncle Chuck being seen as a hero for his selfless actions, but Naruto received a medal as well for courage in the face of danger, as well as being given an official spot in the Knothole Freedom Fighters. Sonic piped up, "And I also want to give this medal to Nicole. We couldn't have made it without her," he said while placing the medal on the miniature supercomputer. Naruto wasn't sure how it was possible, but he was confident that he saw the small handheld blush at the praise. While things were quite different here, and he still needed to find Hinata, and look for a way home, Naruto was starting to think that he was going to like it here as the crowd cheered for their heroes. Sonic the Hedgehog number 37. Oh make, Dr. Evo Robotnik growled angrily as he trudged towards his control room. Not only was his precious city in ruins, but his idiot nephew Snively put up the force field he set around Robotropolis too soon, causing his escape ship to crash, and was now the major cause of the headache he was feeling. After making sure that his nephew got his punishment, the evil doctor walked through the remains of his once beautiful city. What he really wanted to do now was relax in his throne, grab a nice glass of oil, and plot the painfully slow deaths of those pesky freedom fighters. Was that too much to ask? He arrived into his control room and headed for his chair, thanking all the powers of wickedness that the room was largely untouched by the earthquake. Grabbing a can of oil out of his nearby mini-fridge, being evil is hungry work, after all, he sank into his throne with a content sigh. Splat! Evo sputtered as he leapt from his chair and noticed the entire seat was covered in neon orange paint. Feeling his ample backside, Robotnik's hand came up to show that his pants and shirt were now covered in a similar color. It would appear that someone placed a balloon filled with wet paint onto his seat, and the resulting pressure splattered it everywhere. There was only one prankster he knew that would dare pull something like this off. Evo saw red as he screamed to the heavens, "I hate that hedgehog." Robotnik was unaware of three things. 1. It wasn't the blue blur that planted the prank but the shadow clone of a certain blonde ninja. 2. The paint was permanent so he had to throw away one of his favorite uniforms. 3. He'd be finding pranks similar and of greater intensity all throughout Robotropolis for weeks to come. This will be a major plot point that'll be explained in later chapters. Rain beat down on the barren landscape surrounding Robotropolis, the large metal city still showing scars from the earthquake that occurred less than a week ago. Running across the area was a grumbling Antoine and a hovering Tails. This was a scouting mission that Sally had ordered the FF to instigate in order to assess the damage done to Robotnik's stronghold, and see if it could be taken advantage of. Further ahead ran Sonic gripping a power ring while humming a tune to himself. Eventually, the group met on the outskirts of the city, where a construction site powered by SWATbots. "What took you guys so long?" Sonic chuckled as his two friends ran up to meet him. Rolling his eyes, Antoine responded, "Very fun, eh? But I must insist we head back before the storm worsens. Wait, where is Naruto? I think I saw him run ahead with you, Nan." "I'm here," called a familiar voice from above the FF's heads. Looking up, Antoine gave a strangled gasp while the other two looked on in interest as Naruto stood 10 feet above their heads on the side of a building, using wall walking to stick to the building's surface. "And I wouldn't worry too much about the storm. If anything, it's giving us better cover for this scouting mission." Giving a nod, Sonic agreed, "Yeah, and chill. Besides, we got all the info we need, so no need to be afraid." Antoine was about to rebuke the blue hedgehog when a tall shadow covered the group. "Look out!" Naruto warned as he leapt at the potential attacker from the wall. The being the blonde ninja knocked into the mud was a combat-styled robot that was about the size of an adult male. Its hands glowed as it tried to fire lasers at the human, but the angle just resulted in kicked-up mud. "So that's why I didn't sense it," Naruto thought as he slammed his elbow into the machine's neck, severing the head. "This thing isn't like the Robians, it is basically a lifeless puppet so it has no emotions or energy to sense," he mentally concluded. It was then that more green robots flooded the area, causing Tails to take to the sky with Antoine while Sonic leapt at one using his super speed. "The combats? I thought they were all destroyed." "Tails, maneuver S-461. The hedgehog shouted out. Tails gave a confirmation and dropped a protesting Antoine on top of one of the now identified combat's head. The French coyote then proceeded to bounce off and land on another robot's head, knocking both into the mud. Giving a grin, Sonic congratulated the fuming FF member before giving a drop kick to another combat's chest, causing it to be launched into the path of a small missile shot by another combat. The results were both a blocked attack and a blown-to-bits enemy. The battle raged on for several minutes, the veteran FF plus their new ninja recruit fighting skillfully against Dr. Robotnik's creations. Naruto was able to dismantle several with well-placed kicks and punches. Sonic spin-dashed a mechanical rope that tried to tie up Antoine, and Tails drew several of the robots' fire by flying circles around their heads. Eventually, a bolt of lightning struck the last combat that Sonic was just about to attack and caused a small yet powerful explosion of red light, throwing the blue hero back. Worriedly, the other members of the group ran over and Tails gasped at the state his role model was in. The hedgehog was out cold with scrapes and burns over his body, and he looked to be in critical shape. Antoine ordered Tails to get the other FF for help while he and Naruto watched over their friend. Naruto stood worriedly over Sonic's unconscious form, cursing the fact that he didn't know any medical ninjutsu. He briefly considered using Kurama's chakra to heal the Mabian, but he didn't know what effects it would have on his body. Plus, Naruto didn't think that his body had recovered enough yet to try a delicate task like giving a chakra transfusion. It didn't look needed though, as a few minutes after he had left, Tails had returned with the other members of the FF in tow, and Sonic himself looked to be regaining consciousness. The FF crew called out in concern as the hedgehog shook his head to rid himself of the dizziness he still felt from the explosion. Waving off his friend's concern, Sonic stood up saying, "Chill everybody. I went for a heck of a ride, but I'm cool." But Roboslav's not going to be. He and his combats are back in action. Sally explained that their spy network did their best while Tails filled them in on the rest. Sonic, though, started heading towards the main part of the city. "Wait, where are you going? You still need a checkup and a battle plan," Sally called out as Sonic sprung up on a rock getting ready to speed off. Naruto, though, he felt something weird about the energy he felt in Sonic, but before he could voice his concerns, Sonic was already leaping off the rock while prepping his famous speed dash. But instead of going off at speeds too fast to follow, the blue blur tripped over his own 2 feet and landed painfully on his face. Concerned, Naruto ran over and helped his newest friend to his feet, while Tails hovered over while asking if the Quickster was alright. Sonic groaned as he clutched his aching face. "I guess I'm still a little woozy." After taking a moment to clear his head, Sonic broke away from Naruto's grasp and started to once again run towards Robotropolis. There was one big problem though. The normally fast hedgehog was running really slow. In fact, Bunny was able to easily catch up to him by jogging at a brisk pace. It was then the group came to a startling conclusion. Sonic has lost his speed. Sonic started to panic at this sudden development, because he had had his speed for as long as he could remember. It was a part of him, like an organ. Rotor theorized that the energy powering the combat, mixed with the power from the electrical storm, had caused a sort of anti-inertia field to cancel out his speed. The normally cheerful hedgehog bit out a bitter retort to that, but quickly apologized afterwards. Naruto then made his opinion known, stating, "That would explain why Sonic's energy feels different. But how do we unslow him?" There was a beep as Nicole spoke up from her position in Sally's hands. Observation: since mystic power rings provide Sonic with extra power, in theory, the possession of numerous rings may restore his speed. Giving a grin that showed he understood what the mini supercomputer was getting at, Sonic held up the spare power ring he brought with him on this mission and remarked, "You know, Nicole, once in a while you're alright. If a machine could blush, there would definitely be one on the AI right about now." As she beeped back, "Thank you, Sonic." "Okay," Naruto said slowly as he tried to get himself up to speed. "So what is and where do we get more of these power rings?" Rotor perked up at this question and answered, "Power rings, Naruto, are one of Mobius's most potent energy sources. Most of the machinery in Knothole is powered by them, and when used by people their hidden potential is said to be momentarily unleashed. When Sonic, for example, uses one, both his speed and power rise to incredible levels, but only for a short period of time. Unfortunately, the origins of the rings is still kind of hazy, but the best place to get them is the Lake of Rings located near Knothole. The lake itself throws out 1 power ring per day, but it has been more than enough to be a major help in the fight against Robotnik." Sonic held out the one he was currently carrying to the blonde ninja and said, "Here's one. I always make sure to have at least one on me at all times in case I ever find myself in a hairy situation. Don't drop it though, cause if Nicole is right I'll need all the rings I can get my hands on." As the group headed back towards the forest, Naruto looked over the golden ring in his hands. While rather plain looking, Naruto could feel the wrist-sized band pulse with power. Something felt similar to said power, and it only took the whiskered boy a few minutes to figure out why. Eyes widening, Naruto called out mentally, "Kurama, yeah, I can feel it too. That's definitely nature chakra alright." The fox within him said in an interested tone. "But why is that?" "I mean, while Sonic and the others do have some chakra, it's more just the bare minimum that allows things to live. So how can they utilize nature chakra like this without killing themselves?" Kurama rumbled as he thought it over. Then, his vulpine head perked up as he came up with an answer. "Maybites the ring." Sensing his host's confusion, the tailed beast elaborated. "While taking nature chakra directly into your body can kill you if you don't do it correctly. Maybe the ring acts as a filter. This means that if someone were to use the chakra, the ring would only give out the positive aspects of nature chakra while the ring holds back the negative effects, like that one geezer Toad's cane." Naruto flinched at the reminder of Fukasaka's training method, and since nature chakra can be used on things such as plants, it isn't too far out to assume beings without use of their own chakra can use nature chakra too. That's the best I can come up with, at any rate. Wow, that's really convenient. Whoever made these things must be a freaking genius, Naruto thought, impressed as he handed the ring back to Sonic, thinking of all the ways he could use this to his advantage. Meanwhile, an elderly overlander in the north sneezed as he entertained his new guest, shrugging it off as the cold getting to him. The group made their way towards the lake near Knothole, Sonic leading despite no longer being the fastest in his eagerness. Antoine idly commented on how he hoped no one detected them leaving Robotropolis when several things happened at once. Naruto's danger sense kicked in while Nicole's sensors gave off a warning just as several combats seemingly appeared out of thin air. "Ambush!" Naruto shouted out as he got ready for the unavoidable fight. Both Rotor and Antoine got taken out quickly as one combat unleashed a pressurized blast of water at them from a hole in its arm while Bunny extended her robotic limbs to take out one of the combative robots. However, her victory was short as another combat blindsided the cyborg Bunny with a blast of sleeping gas to the face, knocking her out quickly. At the same time, Tails was snagged from the air by a net fired from yet another combat's wrist launcher. Sonic, meanwhile, ducked under a beam fired at him and, taking advantage of the power ring's indestructible nature, threw the ring like a shuriken that smashed the offending combat's chest. Naruto, meanwhile, had made several shadow clones and surrounded one of the combat's that held the downed Tails. With a growl, one Naruto darted forward while ducking under the eye beams the combat fired at his head. Getting within its guard, Naruto gave a vicious kick upwards that sent the combat flying into the air while giving a cry of, "Nah dash!" Another Naruto jumped into the air and sent the robot even higher while shouting, "Ru dash!" The final Naruto spun up into the air and sent the combat crashing to the ground with a heel kick and finishing up with, 2. When the now busted robot landed, all the Narutos said in unison, "Uzumaki barrage." Landing on the ground, Naruto rushed over to Tails' side with a kunai drawn and exclaimed, "Don't worry buddy, I'll get you out." It was not meant to be, however, as Tails gave a warning cry before a blast of energy came out of nowhere and blasted the ninja face forward into the ground, where he lay out cold. Tails could only watch in despair as his friend was picked up by the now decloaked combat that then came and picked up his net in its other hand. The other FF members weren't doing much better as Sally was lassoed by a cable shot from a combat's wrist while Sonic was forced into the water when the combat he struck earlier exploded. Seeing no more targets in the area, the combats saw this as a mission complete and flew off with their live cargo in tow. Time skip. Sonic groaned as he opened his eyes, only to see a purple platypus staring right at him. "Are you alright?" she asked. Spitting out some water that was still in his mouth from his dive in the lake, Sonic said, "Yeah, I'm good Penelope. That explosion stunned me in more ways than one," he stated as he gave a weak grin and held up a brand new power ring in his hands. "Looks like I dived in just in time. Not that it'll do me much good now," though the hedgehog trailed off as he thought about the ambush his team was a part of. "Ah. Good to see you're awake, Sonic." A familiar voice rang out and the blue blur couldn't turn his head fast enough to see Naruto coming out of the tree line. "Naruto? But I saw you get taken with the others. Does this mean you guys escaped?" Sonic asked hopefully, but his joy was short-lived as Naruto shook his head. "Sorry Sonic, I'm just a shadow clone. Boss left me here to make sure you didn't drown and to let you in on the plan he came up with," Naruto's shadow clone explained, having revealed his cloning abilities to the FF a few days after he recovered, to which everyone thought of as, in Sonic's words, way past cool. The shadow clone continued, "I was actually going to go for backup when you didn't wake up immediately, but then these guys came and met me halfway." Penelope nodded as she put in, "When we saw the battle on the security cams, we came as fast as we could." At which point several other Mobians came out of the woods. There was a pig in a blue vest, a green armadillo, and a brown porcupine. With Penelope, they all wore the combat belt that signified they were the reserve FF that Sally had been training. Sonic's grin grew wider at his new backup. While they weren't the team he was used to, they'd do in a pinch. Turning to the Naruto clone he asked, "So what was that about a plan?" Scene change. Back at Dr. Robotnik's main fortress, the otherwise incapacitated members of the FF were being carried towards the secondary lab the good doctor had set up shop in. Unknown to their metal captors though, one of their prisoners was not as out cold as he looked. Naruto hid his grin as he played possum over the shoulder of one of the combats, as the memories of his shadow clone came rushing back to him. It had been a risky gamble, pretending to be captured by the advanced machines in order to better protect his teammates, but luckily Naruto's history in the gambling department was much better than Tsunade's was. When the one combat had hit him with the blast, it was easy enough to pretend to be out cold. While the blast had hurt, it still lacked the punch some of the stronger attacks that had hit him with in the past had. Naruto had made sure to leave behind at least one shadow clone, both to make sure Sonic was okay when he saw said hedgehog go falling into the water and to inform him of his intentions. What were these intentions, one might ask? Naruto saw that their group was in a bad position being completely surrounded in the ambush, and with himself still recovering from his cross-dimensional trip the odds were not looking in his favor. Once the ninja saw Sonic go into the water, and the robots seemed to ignore the hedgehog thinking he drowned, a plan quickly formed. When the robots took them to the base, Sonic would perform a rescue mission with any help available in Knothole while Naruto, using his ninja skills, would cause as much confusion as possible while inside the base, allowing Sonic to rescue the other members of the FF while the enemy's guard was down. Now all that remained was for him to wait for the shadow clone to dispel to make sure Sonic was aware of and agreed to the plan. Meanwhile, the combats kept marching further and further into the base while Naruto subtly placed linked exploding tags, 3, on the ground. Linked exploding tags, unlike regular exploding tags, did not immediately activate when chakra was added to them. Instead, the chakra needed to also be added to a main tag that would cause all the seals to go off at once. It was a very handy seal to use for distractions, and it is one Jiraiya had taught him during their training trip. Unfortunately, he never really had a chance to use them against the Akatsuki, and any time he actually did wind up captured, his ninja equipment was always removed completely. Luckily for him, it appears these combat robots had no experience in dealing with ninja. Heck, they even forgot to take his weapons pouch off him. They'd soon learn why it was never a good idea to underestimate the whiskered child. Suddenly, the group came to a halt, and the trapped Mobians plus one human found themselves in a fairly large, well-lit room. There were several assembly lines with pieces of combat scattered on them, as well as a cluster of large glass containers attached to a machine, which had labeled under it that said in block letters, Roboticization Chamber 406-8. So that was the machine that transformed flesh and blood into machines, huh? Naruto made a mental note to make sure it was accidentally destroyed maliciously. And there, sitting on a throne-like chair in the center of the room, sat the tyrant himself. Robotnik himself is a tall man of imposing girth with a bald head, dark orange mustache and black eyes with crimson irises. His attire consisted of a sleeveless, red jumpsuit with yellow lines spanning up, down and around his body, wide shoulder pads, a yellow cape and gray boots. Also, his left arm from the shoulder and down was completely robotic. He spoke in a voice that was both deep and rasping. Well. The freedom fighters. Welcome to my humble abode, though while not as grand as my main lair, will make do while repairs are being made. Allow me to prepare your accommodations. Combats, he barked, place them in the roboticizer. The robots obeyed, and the FF soon found themselves in the glass containment tubes. The doctor stood in front of them, a large gloating smile on his fat face. It was then he noticed something, or someone was missing. Turning to the lead combat, Robotic growled, "Where is that hedgehog?" The combat spoke emotionlessly. Sonic the Hedgehog was seen being thrown into a body of water when Unit 486 exploded. And you didn't see if he was alive or not? Why? Robotnik said in a dangerous tone. The combat continued. The main directive was to capture all available freedom fighters. This unit deemed it necessary to bring the captured freedom fighters back or risk compromising their capture. That was the last thing the robot ever said as its head was smashed by Robotnik's metal fist. I'm the one who says what's necessary and what isn't, you worthless pile of scrap, he thundered before turning back to the trapped FF. Two combats dragging away their scrap leader to a junk pile in the corner of the room. Geez, and I thought Madara had control issues, Kurama muttered in his host's mind. The doctor then regained his more calm appearance, as he seemed to think of the recent developments. Saying in a low mutter, well, it does not matter. With his precious team here, Sonic will come to me. And with his speed currently no longer working, he'll get crushed as easily as a fly. It was then that Robotnik took notice of the one member of the captives that was different from what he was used to. Oh ho? What is this? An overlander child? Well now, a sick grin grew on the doctor's face. How lucky for me. Not only will I be rid of the FF once and for all, but one of my own traitorous people to boot. Tell me, child, who are you? Naruto grinned and answered, well, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, Fatso. The fat man gained a tick mark on the top of his head and his face soon matched his coat. Fatso? Insolent child. Do you have any idea who I am? He roared. Does it look like I care? Naruto asked before sticking out his tongue while lowering his left eyelid with his hand. Robotnik looked ready to burst a blood vessel, but then he seemed to get a hold of himself. Giving a sneer, he said, well, I see you have an attitude, child. That will change once I give you a more metallic personality. Then I'll make sure you will be put to work till you fall to pieces. That is what you'll get for mocking the great evil Robotnik. Dear lord, this guy's vain, Kurama deadpanned in the recess of Naruto's mind. Heh, nice try being intimidating, Tubby, but I've fought and beat people 100 times more powerful and scary than you, Naruto shot back. HN, we'll see if you still say that after I turn you and your little friends into my mindless slaves. Snively, Robotnik barked and a short, balding man with a large pointed nose came rushing forward. Yes, sir? The little man asked. Prepare the roboticizer for activation. I want Sonic to watch in despair when he arrives only to see his friends turn into robots before his very eyes, the dictator said coolly. Back with the FF Tails, whose tank was right next to Naruto's, leaned in to whisper, I'm scared, Naruto. Naruto gave the young fox a reassuring smile. Don't worry, Tails, me and Sonic have a plan. This was true, as the moment they entered the room Naruto's shadow clone must have dispelled, as he got a rush of memories that showed the meeting with the reserved FF, Sonic, and the FF spy network, and their incorporation into the plan. The rescue party had just arrived outside Robotropolis when the clone dispelled itself to let the original know that the group was ready and waiting for his signal. Sonic will stop you, Robotnik, Sally declared from her glass prison. Oh, he's welcome to try, Princess, Robotnik sneered, but by the end of the day, it is I who will be victorious. Naruto chose that moment to place his chakra into the controlling linked exploding tag, and suddenly the room was rocked by a series of explosions. What was that? Robotnik demanded as he pulled himself back onto his chair, the explosions having forced him off from the shock waves. Sensors indicate a large number of explosions to have gone off throughout the base, sir. Snively exclaimed in panic as he checked his computer's readings. What? Robotnik bellowed. It must be Sonic. Prepare the combats. We need to get ready before the mad doctor could complete his order. Sonic and the reserve FF suddenly decided to gate crash by way of breaking through the vents. This was the main plan. While Sonic and his team snuck in through the service vents the spy network laid out for them, Naruto would set off his explosives to draw the sensors, and thus the doctor's attention to those. This gave the rescue party the opening they needed to avoid an ambush. Looking like he'd swallowed something healthy for the first time in his life, the tubby tyrant tried his best to school his features at the unexpected arrival. I must say, while I don't know how you were able to get through my detection network to plant your explosives, Hedgehog, it was foolish for you to come here. Through Snively's persuasive tactics, which means Snively saw it through the combat's records, I've discovered your secret. I'm going to enjoy eliminating you all the more now that you're powerless. With that, he threw back his head and gave a maniacal laugh. Holding his glowing power ring to his side, Sonic quipped, "Listen, Blubberbutt. Snively's paid to act like an idiot, why do you do it for free?" Turning nearly purple with rage, Robotnik cried out, "Combats! Destroy them now!" With that, the robots and the Mobians went at it. While the reserved FF put up a good fight, it was clear that things were not in their favor. It was then Sonic had a dull look on his face as he pulled out a second power ring from his backpack, yet there still wasn't any noticeable change in his speed. However, it was by pure luck that he noticed one of the scrap combats was the one he beat earlier in the ambush, and it still had the power ring lodged in its chest. Sonic made a leap for the ring, but the other combats seemed determined to stop the blue hero and went to dogpile on him. For a moment, it looked like Sonic didn't make it, but the combats were suddenly sent flying as Sonic burst from the pile, holding all three glowing rings in his hand. After that, the other killer robots stood no chance as Sonic tore through them like they were made out of foil. His speed returned at last. Standing atop the new pile of camo-colored scrap, Sonic faced his overweight foe and declared, "Okay, Conehead, your bots are busted and you're surrounded. Let my friends go and get ready for your story to come to an end." Robotnik, however, just laughed. "Ha! You may have defeated my combats, but in the end I'll have the last laugh. Snively, activate the roboticizer." "Snively?" he asked after a prolonged silence answered him. Turning towards where his nephew and lackey was at, Robotnik's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. Standing in front of the roboticizer, the controls smashed to pieces and the holding tanks with large holes in them, stood the FF with Naruto Uzumaki in front standing on the tied-up form of his nephew. "You were saying, Lardo?" Naruto asked with a fox-like grin. Trying to wrap his brilliant mind over what just happened, Robotnik spun back around to face Sonic and the reserve FF with a growl. "Perhaps for today I'll leave you with your small victory," he said as he pushed a button on his throne, causing the back to open up into a slide down a secret escape hatch. He then extended his robotic arm, which was attached to a cable, to snag the hog-tied Snively out from under the surprised Naruto's feet before jumping towards the escape hatch. He then shouted out before leaping into the darkness, "To make sure you don't steal any of my technology, I've set a bomb to go off, but I am a sporting man, so I'll give a 60-second head start and counting. Ta-ta." And with that, he was gone. Scene skip. Everyone stood outside as they watched the base go up in smoke. After checking out to make sure everyone was okay, Sonic turned back towards Robotropolis with a resolute look on his face. "We'll meet again, Robotnik, but next time, I'll pick the place," Sonic declared. Feeling a hand on his shoulder, Sonic looked behind him to see a grinning Naruto with all his friends and comrades behind him. "And we'll be behind you all the way, Sonic, believe it," Naruto assured the blue speedster, to which all the other members of the FF, both official and reserve, gave a cheer. Giving a smile back to his friends, Sonic and company left to head back to Knothole Village. Scene break. In another lair in Robotropolis, Robotnik stared at the security footage from the latest fiasco with the FF. He still couldn't figure out how those pesky rebels had managed to place explosives in his base without being detected. And there was the matter of the blonde overlander boy the furry freaks had decided to pick up. Evo watched the video intently as Naruto, while Robotnik's attention was focused on Sonic, took out an oddly shaped knife from the bag at his waist and cut a hole in his tube. Once free, he then hog-tied Snively with some of the wires on the ground from the combat assembly line, and then cut the other FFs free. Then, what looked like a ball of blue light formed in the brat's hand and he used that to smash the controls for the roboticizer. "It looks like I'll have to keep a closer eye on you, Naruto Uzumaki. You seem like the sort who will become yet another thorn in my side," the doctor mused before activating his comm channel. "Snively," he barked into the speaker. "Why yes sir?" His nephew stuttered over the mic. "Get me in contact with Knack the Weasel. I think it's time to see if the bounty hunter will have any luck bringing me a certain blue rodent," Robotnik said with a sinister chuckle, his red eyes nearly glowing in the darkened room. 1. I figured this would definitely make things more interesting in the near future. And wait until you see what I plan on for the Chaos Emeralds. 2. Seeing as plants reacted to nature chakra in canon, is it really that much of a stretch to think beings who don't normally use chakra can use nature chakra with a buffer? 3. This was an idea that I came up with myself. It is great for causing diversions and demolition, but Naruto never got the opportunity to use them in canon. And hey all you loyal readers, I'm back with more Sonic/Naruto goodness. First of all, I want to give a big thanks to all of the people who have been supporting me thus far both by their reviews and general encouragement. Also, I've made a community on my profile for any and all stories that were either written by me directly, or inspired by me in some way, shape, or form. Have any of you seen the latest canon Sonic? I am bummed that they're basically scrapping the entire plot they had built up to this point for a type of revamp. I honestly hate when companies cop out like that, but I'll do my best to enjoy the series as it is. After all, who knows what the future will bring? Plus it isn't all bad, what with them reintroducing the Warhog form and all. Sonic, unleashed forever. So I've been watching the Sonic Boom show, and I've gotta say, while I enjoy the animation and am happy they are doing a new Sonic TV show, I'm not sure on how they did Knuckles. It isn't even the body redesign, though that did catch me off guard when I first saw it, but more along the lines of how they made him kind of a moron. Now while the classic Knuckles isn't overly smart, getting tricked by villains like Eggman more than once, but that was more due to temper than anything else, he usually showed a decent amount of intelligence whenever he cleared his mind. This new Knuckles just seems, for lack of a better word, dumb. Of course, I'm still planning on watching it, and who knows, he might have a hidden intellect like Naruto. Now while I've been largely following the Sonic storyline, I'm not going to do just an exact retelling with Naruto added in as a side character or something. As you can see by this chapter, I'm planning on giving Naruto a big role while at the same time not neglecting the other Sonic characters. I may skip some arcs, like ones where the story is personal for a certain character, but I'll hopefully make this a story worth reading. Next time will be the Mecha Madness Saga, but I'm going to be doing it in hopefully a unique way. For now though, I'm going to post another challenge or two and then back to my other stories, so bear with me please. Till next time, please read, review, and enjoy. Naruto was running along the hallways of the FF base in Naruto village while cursing under his breath. He'd been called to a meeting today along with the other members of the Freedom Fighters, and this would be his first one as an official member of the Naruto Freedom Fighters. Apparently the team was going to go over some new strategies for fighting Robotnik as well as how to better their own defenses. Unfortunately, Naruto's alarm clock must have broken sometime during the night, and he was running a few minutes late. Relax Naruto. I don't think a few minutes is going to turn you into the next Kakashi. Kurama chuckled amusedly at his host's panic. Shut up for a ball. I just recently became an official member of this team, and I want to make a good impression. Last I checked, being late to important meetings was the exact opposite of that. Naruto rebuked before skidding to a halt in front of the meeting room Tails had shown him during his tour. Straightening up to try and look casual, Naruto opened the door to walk in only to be greeted by the sight of Sonic hopping up into the air in his patented spin dash. Walking over to the table where the other FF members minus Tails were seated at, Naruto asked, "What's up with Sonic?" Turning to him, Sally said, "Ah Naruto, so glad you could join us." You could practically hear the chiding in her voice, so Naruto decided to play it cool. Sorry I'm late, my alarm must have broken last night," Naruto mumbled embarrassed. Yeah, smooth is not his strong point. PFT, I'll bet you just slept through ET. Your snoring could drown out a stampede, let alone the alarm clock, Antoine scoffed. Ignoring Naruto's glare at the French coyote, Sally turned back to Sonic and said, "At any rate, I'm sorry your request was denied Sonic, but that's democracy in action. But it's a perfect plan, any fool can see that." Sonic argued. "What plan?" Naruto wondered. "Keep listening, I'm sure it'll come up," Kurama advised. Sure enough, Sonic's plan was revealed to have him get purposefully caught by Robotnik, and have himself roboticized. Using a device the FF had developed earlier, Sonic would retain his free will and use the mechanical enhancements being roboticized would give him to take down the Mad Doctor and his empire once and for all. Am I the only one who sees that plan as half-baked? Naruto thought, seeing several gaping holes in the plan. For starters, while Robotnik seems like a bumbling buffoon, the ninja doubted he got to where he is by being stupid. If Sonic, someone who has easily both defeated and avoided him for years, was to just suddenly get captured, he would probably suspect something was amiss. Plus there was no guarantee that instead of roboticizing the hedgehog, the tyrant wouldn't just make a big public execution of him just to be safe. Finally, even if Sonic became significantly stronger, the blonde doubted he could defeat an entire empire on his own. Trust me, you're not the only one. If I didn't know better, I'd think a younger you would be the one to come up with that plan, Kurama deadpanned. You can be a real jerk sometimes, you know that? Naruto deadpanned right back at the tailed beast. Apparently the other FF members thought the same as the two-dimensional travelers, as they all gave reasons why Sonic's plan was denied. Finally relenting that he was outvoted, Sonic left the meeting room in a huff. Antoine suggested that the speedster should be monitored, but Sally shot that idea down, claiming that Sonic was anything but disloyal. So intent in their discussion, none of them noticed the curtain-whiskered blonde left the room shortly after the hedgehog. Where do you think you're headed? Kurama asked the blonde as he hopped from rooftop to rooftop, even though the ancient fox had a good inkling. I'm going to catch up with Sonic and see what he's up to, Naruto replied mentally, trying to spot the blue speedster. I thought Sally said she didn't want him to be monitored? And here I thought you wanted to make a good impression with these guys. Naruto rolled his eyes as he caught signs of where Sonic sped off to by the trail of dust still floating above the ground. I know that's stupid, I just want to make sure the guy's okay. He looked pretty upset after that meeting after all, and I know how impatient people like him can take it being rejected like that. Speaking from personal experience, eh? Kurama chuckled. Kind of, yeah, Naruto admitted, causing Kurama to balk as he figured that would have gotten a rise out of the dimension-displaced shinobi. Hearing that, Naruto elaborated, "Look, I know I've not been the cleverest person in the world nor the most humble, but even I can admit that I can be a hothead a lot of the time. But that is what makes me the best person to talk to Sonic right now because he's acting like I tend to." "You've really matured, Naruto," Kurama mused, impressed. Naruto grinned, "Not really, it's just that going through all I have with the war and everything helped give me some perspective. I doubt I'm going to be writing any psychology books anytime soon, but I can at least think a bit clearer on things. I also think what Itachi told me about not handling everything on my own kind of stuck with me, you know? Well, at least one of those Uchihas had more than their own ego behind those eyes of theirs. Anyway, I think that blue hedgehog is over there if I'm sensing him right." Kurama then narrowed his eyes and growled, "And he's not alone. Judging by the intent I'm sensing, I doubt it's a friend with him." Trusting the tailed beast's judgment, Naruto also narrowed his eyes and stealthily made his way over to the building that he recognized from the tour as the FF's fitness center. Sticking to the shadows, Naruto saw the door open and the figure who emerged was definitely not Sonic. The Mabian who came out was purple in color with white on the face. Judging from the body structure, Naruto guessed that the person was male, and had the physical characteristics of a weasel. He wore brown gloves, a brown hat, brown shoes, and finally a brown belt wrapped around his waist. Over his shoulder he seemed to be carrying a package of sorts, and he was the one who had the wicked intent Kurama sensed earlier. Naruto got closer and to his shock noticed that the package he was carrying was actually an unconscious and bound Sonic. Growling under his breath, Naruto got ready to jump the kidnapper. "Wait, Naruto, you need to plan this out," Kurama warned as he felt his friend was about to do something both stupid and drastic. "No time. I have no idea who this guy is, and by the time I get the others to come up with a full plan Sonic could be either long gone or dead," Naruto stated firmly as he stealthily crept closer and closer to the weasel. Seeing his opportunity right before the criminal got on a strange-looking vehicle with his unconscious cargo, Naruto made a break for it. Using his ninja speed and reflexes, Naruto was able to get behind the weasel and held a kunai to his throat. "Drop him and put your hands in the air," Naruto growled dangerously while keeping a firm grip on the knife. The Mabian gulped. "Who are you supposed to be?" "The one telling you to drop Sonic now," Naruto stated coldly. Slowly, the Mabian made to put the hedgehog down. However, Naruto failed to keep track of the weasel's tail and, the moment Sonic was on the ground and he prepared to knock the kidnapper out, the tail sprang forward holding a strange-looking weapon that sprayed a stream of gas right into the human's face too. Before Naruto to retaliate, his vision quickly faded to black. When he opened them again, he noticed he was inside the FF base with both Sally and Dr. Quack looking over him, while the rest of the team watched worriedly from a distance. "Naruto, are you alright?" Sally asked worriedly. The human groaned as he sat up, rubbing his head and trying to remember what happened. "Easy kid, from the looks of things you took a blast of a very powerful sleep agent right to the face." 3. Dr. Quack warned, placing a hand on Naruto's chest to prevent him from overexerting himself. At that, memories of what happened before he got knocked out came rushing back to him. "Never mind that, we've got to rescue Sonic," Naruto exclaimed as he leapt up, easily throwing the duck's hand off him. "Wait, rescue? What do ya mean, hun?" Bunny questioned as the other FF made their way over to their newest recruit. "What I mean is Sonic got kidnapped," Naruto told them urgently. "What?" was the shout that came up from this declaration. "Sonic was kidnapped?" Sally repeated in a shocked state. "Oh no, Sonic!" Tails cried while flying around in a panic. Who could have even gotten the drop on the hedgehog? Antoine wondered because even though he saw the blue blur as immature and his alleged rival, even the egotistical swordsman would admit Sonic was next to impossible to defeat on the battlefield. With a grim look on his face, Naruto told the FF what he saw before being knocked unconscious. "That sounds like that no-good varmint Knack the Weasel, but wasn't he locked up after the last time he tried to attack Sugarhog?" Bunny stated after Naruto described the kidnapper. Sally, looking urgently to Rotor, ordered, "Go check on Knack's prison cell. And question the guards if they saw anything in the last few days. I want to know what happened pronto." The walrus saluted the princess before running off towards the jailhouse while the others were left to figure out a plan of action. "We can't stand around for long. I don't know how long I was unconscious, so I've got no idea how close this Knack guy is to doing whatever he plans to do with Sonic. We'll need to start tracking them and hope they don't have too much of a head start," Naruto insisted while looking ready to jump into action at a moment's notice. Sally shook her head at this. "It's not good. Knack is notorious for owning some of the fastest land vehicles around. Knowing his reputation as a bounty hunter, I'm willing to bet Knack is hoping to cash in on the price Robotnik placed on Sonic's head. He's probably already in Robotropolis as we speak, and then Sonic will be at the doctor's mercy. Even more reason we should leave now. If there's a chance to save Sonic, I'm willing to take it," Naruto rebuked. Antoine spoke up. "If the doctor already has the hedgehog, it might be too late to do anything. Don't give up without even trying, Ant," Naruto admonished while noticing the hurt and scared look Tails now had at the thought of his best friend and hero being in the hands of the evil tyrant. "For all we know, Sonic is being held prisoner, and is waiting for us to go and rescue him." "Enough," Sally ordered before the argument could escalate further. "We're wasting time arguing amongst each other. We need to split into two groups. Naruto, Antoine and I will scout out Robotropolis to see if Sonic is actually there and, if possible, try to rescue him. The rest of the FF will remain in Knothole in case something happens. But keep the comm channels open because I'll have Nicole radio in if things get bad." Accepting their designated roles, the Knothole freedom fighters split up. Once Sally, Antoine, and Naruto were a distance away from the hidden village, Naruto asked the princess, "I noticed you were holding back something when you had the others stay back in Knothole. What do you think is going to happen?" Sally seemed surprised at first but then took on a worried expression. "It's about Robotnik having Sonic. Knowing that man, he'll almost certainly decide to roboticize Sonic the moment he gets his metal grip on him. When that happens, I have no doubt in my mind that he'll use Sonic's memories to attack Knothole. If that were to happen, I'm not sure if anyone could stop a mechanized Sonic. That's why I left some of our best offensive members behind in order to either ambush Sonic, or at least slow him down enough for us to help." Nodding at the FF leader's logic, Naruto then gained a grave expression and asked, "Are you sure Robotnik wouldn't execute Sonic immediately after capturing him?" Sally gained a panicked look at that but quickly reined it in. "No," she said after a few seconds of silence. "Robotnik may be capable of such tactics, but he has too much of a flair for the dramatic and is too sadistic to make it that simple. He'd want Sonic to be his mindless slave, crushing his friends instead of just dead. Well, there's that at least, but how will we know when Robotnik is about to roboticize him?" Naruto questioned. Suddenly, Nicole spoke up with a beep. "Sally, my sensors are indicating a hostile incoming at great speeds from Robotropolis direction." With a nervous look, Antoine gulped. "That yes, how?" Suddenly, a Robian flew at the small group while firing lasers from wrist-mounted cannons. This Robian was blue in color with yellow plating located at key points along its body while the hands were white in color. The eyes glowed a sinister scarlet color that matched the being's feet, and almost every part of the robot looked pointed, deadly, and menacing. Despite all this, there was no doubt as to who the Robian attacker was. "Sonic!" Sally cried out desperately as she went diving for cover from the deadly laser bolts. "He has become Z Mecha Sonic!" Antoine whimpered as he was knocked out of the way by Naruto. "All hail Robotnik!" Mecha Sonic declared in a dead-sounding monotone, continuing his barrage while hovering from his rocket-propelled feet. As Naruto dodged the laser fire, he felt something from Sonic that he felt earlier when he first met the controlled Robians during the earthquake, but couldn't place what the feeling was. He chose to ponder it later as he had to focus more on his and the others' survival. "Is there any way to stop him without permanently damaging him?" he called out to the princess. Looking up from her hiding position, Sally answered, "There might be, but we'll need to regroup." Turning to her dropped computer, she ordered, "Nicole, execute maneuver DLG 70-foot." Working, Nicole hummed before suddenly multiple copies of the FF scattered over the clearing. Antoine gasped in shock while Sally reassured him by telling them it was Nicole creating multiple holographic images to confuse their roboticized friend. The ploy worked as Mechasonic started aiming for the duplicates, but he was quickly going through them. While he heard Sally discuss something with Nicole, Naruto decided to take matters into his own hands. "These holograms are cool and all, but they're about the same as a regular clone from back home. Let's see how he handles some shadow clones." With that, Naruto made a familiar cross seal and suddenly there were several poofs of smoke that revealed even more duplicates of the blonde. As the shadow clones charged Mechasonic, several did a simple transformation jutsu to look like either Sally or Antoine to increase the Robian's confusion. As the Naruto clones began to swarm the mechanized hedgehog, there was the sound of thrusters getting closer and closer before suddenly, Bunny Rabbit blasted onto the scene and gave the blue robot a hard backhand with her mechanical fist. Turning to the blonde's clones, the half-Robian asked, "Y'all okay there, sugar?" The Narutos grinned and one answered, "Never been better." While another said, "Now let's stop Sonic before someone gets hurt, namely him." And then they all cried out, "Charge!" The orange mob didn't pull any weapons or destructive jutsu out, however, as they didn't want to risk harming Sonic beyond the point of repair. Mechasonic, however, had no such reservations. Analyzing, Mechasonic stated as he viewed the approaching horde that was rushing him from all sides before his upper torso started to rotate at fast speeds while his arms were held straight out, firing their lasers all the while. The literal tornado of blaster fire destroyed Naruto clones left and right, along with the landscape, while Bunny took to the air after receiving a signal from Naruto himself. Once the fallen hero slowed down, his arm cannon still smoking, his mechanical eyes surveyed the surrounding area that was now littered with scorched earth and burnt down trees. Error, no life signals detected. Possible conclusion, target Naruto Uzumaki used duplicates to hide his escape. Mechasonic was so busy with his analysis that he didn't notice the ground shifting slightly beneath him. That is, until Naruto popped right out of the ground and sent him hurtling up into the sky with a chakra-enhanced uppercut. "Bunny!" Naruto called out. "On it!" The rabbit called back, appearing above the rapidly ascending Mechasonic, and, clutching both flesh and metal fists together, sent him right back down to earth with a powerful spike. On the ground, Naruto quickly created two clones that grabbed one arm each before giving the original a powerful heave, rocketing him right towards Mechasonic's now falling form. "Oh, this is going to hurt," Naruto thought right before his blonde head crashed into his roboticized friend's abdomen and sent him crashing right into a tree. Meanwhile, Naruto fell to the ground rolling while nursing the large bump that started steaming on his head. I was right, that definitely hurt, Naruto groaned as he staggered back to his feet. I always knew you were hard-headed, so thanks for proving me right, Kurama laughed from within the seal. Now is so not the time, Kurama. Naruto mentally shot back as he spotted Mecha Sonic rising to his feet, murder blazing in his possessed eyes. Come on, Sugar Hog. Do us a favor and stay down. Bunny pleaded as she went for a falling kick, using her leg's telescoping ability to lengthen the range of her attack. You shall all be destroyed in the name of Robotnik. Mecha Sonic returned as he used his booster rockets to dodge the descending leg, which shattered the tree he was standing in front of. Before Bunny could recover, Mecha Sonic used his speed to get behind her and put her in a full Nelson. As she tried to escape, Bunny suddenly let out a cry of pain as a surge of electricity passed on from Mecha Sonic right into her organic body. Bunny! Naruto cried in alarm as he saw the rabbit Mabian drop in a heap, momentarily stunned from her shock treatment. Okay, Sonic, I know you're my friend and that you're being controlled right now, but now I'm gonna knock you around until you come back to your sense. He growled as he launched himself at Sonic, using both shadow clones and the substitution jutsu to dodge the Robian's laser fire. As Mecha Sonic focused on the frontal assault, Naruto used his skills as a ninja to sneak around behind the hedgehog in the hopes of knocking him out with a sneak attack. Unfortunately, Sonic had learned to be wary of sneak attacks over the course of the fight and, using his sensors to their maximum capacity, easily was able to detect Naruto. Just as the blonde leapt for his unprotected back, Mecha Sonic once again rotated just his upper torso and grabbed the blonde by the throat before lifting him up and violently slamming him into the ground. Naruto gasped in pain as his remaining shadow clones were dispelled by the sudden break in Naruto's chakra. I don't think I've been hit that hard since Granny Tsunade. Naruto thought in pain as his vision started to dim. Before he blacked out, he noticed Mecha Sonic flying off once more and two shapes rushing towards him. Several minutes later, Naruto woke up with a gasp and found himself in the Knothole Infirmary once more. Geez, twice in one day. I wonder if getting knocked out will become a thing for me in this universe? Naruto thought sarcastically while getting up, rubbing his still slightly tender throat. Better get used to it until you're back to 100% brat. Because while not as strong as some of the foes you've faced in the past, the beings of this universe are no pushovers, Kurama advised him, yeah, that's true. Worst part is from what I can tell I'm only still at about half my full strength, so it's probably going to take a couple months before I can really go all out, Naruto agreed as he noticed the door opening. A relieved-looking Tails flew into the room and quickly went to Naruto's bedside. Naruto! Boy, am I glad to see you're alright. From what Aunt Sally and Aunt told me, I thought you might have gone into a coma or something. The young fox greeted the blonde happily. Thanks, Tails, but you don't need to worry, I'm stronger than I look, Naruto grinned, hoping to ease the twin-tailed freedom fighter's worries. Gaining a serious look, Naruto asked, what happened while I was out? Also getting serious, Tails replied, it's not looking good. When you were knocked out, Aunt Sally and Antoine were able to get you back to base while Aunt Bunny was able to recover enough to go fight Sonic. At this he looked grim and continued, for now she's able to hold him off, but I don't know how long that will last. Then it's almost certain that Sonic will attack Knothole. Getting to his feet, Naruto rolled his shoulder with a pop and stated, well, I guess it's time for me to get ready for round 2. Tails looked surprised. You're going back out already? But your injuries, Naruto cut him off, I heal fast. Plus besides me and Bunny I don't think there's anyone else on the base who can fight Mecha Sonic without someone getting seriously hurt. At this, Tails brightened. Actually, I was able to call in an old friend who can definitely help us. He was fortunately in the area when I was able to contact him, and he's nearly as strong as Sonic. What do you mean by nearly, kid? A new voice chimed in. The two looked to the door to see a red Mabian standing in the doorway with a confident smirk on his face. His fur was bright red and done up in dreadlocks on the top of his head, while around his neck he had a white ring of fur. His shoes were red, yellow, and green with metal plating on the top, and he wore what appeared to be white mittens with 2 spikes jutting out from the knuckles on each hand. In addition, the being gave off a fairly powerful aura, and Naruto recognized that a lot of it was what appeared to be natural chakra. It was then that Naruto realized that this Mabian in front of him was almost like him in Sage mode, except he seemed to keep it naturally flowing through his body all the time. Unlike with Jugo, however, this Mabian didn't seem to be adversely affected by it. 5. Before Naruto could figure out what all this meant, the Mabian stepped forward with a hand stretched out in greeting. Hey there. My name is Knuckles the Echidna, guardian of Angel Island. Pleased to meet you. Naruto, shaking himself out of his thoughts, grinned and took the offered hand, mentally impressed at the strength he felt in Knuckles' grip. Naruto Uzumaki, nice to meet you as well, he greeted. Letting go of his hand, Knuckles stared at Naruto for a moment before nodding. I thought so. I was going out to fight Blue right away, but as soon as Tails mentioned you I had to see this for myself. You're definitely from the same place as him. There's no mistaking a power like that, he said aloud. An odd feeling built up in Naruto's stomach at that, and he asked warily, him? Before any of the room's occupants could say a word, another voice called out from the hallway, Yo! Why did you run off without me, Cux? Trying to find my way through this big place alone just sucks. 6. I know that rap. Naruto thought in stunned amazement as he turned to the new figure entering the room. Despite looking much younger, there was no mistaking that blonde-white hair, the ever-present shades, and horn-shaped tattoo on his left cheek. In almost a haze, Naruto weakly called out, "B?" Turning to his fellow Jinchuriki, the Cloud Ninja gave a big grin and said, "Hey cool. I finally found you, fool ya fool." 1. Begins during Mecha Madness in STH number 39. 2. While it may seem that Naruto went out too easily, please keep in mind that Naruto is still recovering his full power, and that Nack the Weasel is a tricky villain, having captured Sonic several times in the past. Also, Naruto was both focusing on saving Sonic and had never seen a gun before, so it would be easier for Nack to take him by surprise. 3. Remember that Naruto can still get affected by poisons and sleeping agents, like when Sakura accidentally poisoned Naruto after they confronted Sasuke during the 5 Kage Summit. His recovery time is better than average though, as the sleep agent used on him was designed to last 12 hours. 4. While I do enjoy some stories where Naruto goes to a new universe and starts curb stomping everyone, I'd rather do a story where Naruto gradually regains his former strength against foes that are dangerous in their own right. While some of the villains from the Sonicverse aren't as flashy or as seemingly dangerous as the ones from the Narutoverse, keep in mind that they all have their own unique strengths that could make them dangerous to even the most powerful heroes. 5. Remember how Knuckles and the other Guardians are linked to the Chaos Emerald? I figured that would be similar to being in constant Sage mode minus the craziness that came with it for Jugo. I plan on exploring this more later in the story, so keep your eyes peeled. 6. I'm going to level with you. I'm not that great of a rapper or a poet even, but I'm going to try my best when it comes to writing Killer Bee instead of some authors who just write him speaking normally. I mean, come on. What's Bee without his rap talk? It'd be like Naruto without his orange or his ramen, that's what. Besides, in canon he isn't considered a great rapper anyway, so I think I can get away with some bad lyrics here and there. Fool ya fool. And here we are again. I'm actually really excited to be writing this chapter, as it will be a 1 of 2 part story arc like in canon Sonic. Needless to say, things will be going down slightly differently this time around. For starters, Naruto actually saw Sonic getting kidnapped, so this won't cause the FF to think Sonic went off and tried to do his plan on his own. Also, I hope I made the fight scene exciting enough, cause if you read the original version of this fight you'll notice I did things differently. I also hope my characters didn't seem to OOC, as again I'm not the best when it comes to writing out dialogue. There will be the traditional challenge chapters after this, but I'm actually getting close to writing out all the ideas in my head, so hopefully I will be able to focus solely on my main stories within the next year or so. Naruto blinked, rubbed his eyes, then blinked again. Am I seeing things, Kurama? He thought. Killer Bee was standing by the newly arrived Knuckles, though the 8-Tails Jinchuriki looked much younger than when he last saw him. In fact, if Naruto was to hazard a guess, the Cloud Ninja looked to be around his own current, regressed age. The goatee the man had was gone and both his muscles and height were greatly decreased. Also his hair, instead of slicked back, was pointed forwards in spikes, similar to Kakashi's hairstyle. His clothes were also changed, so he now wore a green t-shirt, dark shorts, and had a smaller pair of his signature sunglasses and flak jacket. The only things that looked the same was the white scarf wrapped around his neck, the tattoos on his body, and the large bandage-wrapped form of Samahata, which looked a little comical on B's smaller body. Yo Mr. 9, it's great to see you doing fine. Haven't seen you in far too long. Made me think that something had gone wrong. B rapped, breaking Naruto out of his shock and caused him to chuckle. Was it weird that he'd missed B's terrible rapping skills? It's great to see you too, B. I know Kurama had said you came to this world with me, but I wasn't sure where you were. Also noticed you're younger now too. Guess that means I can't call you Octopops anymore, huh? Naruto replied. B gave his signature grin and rapped, check it. I found myself on an island in the sky, made me wonder where I learned to fly. Then I found that I was in my prime, but I can still bust out my rhymes. That's when I found my pal Knuckles. He's been great even though he's not one to chuckle. Yeah, why does he talk like that? A slightly bandaged Antoine interjected. I can barely understand him. The rest of the group turned to the French coyote with a look that said, are you kidding me? What? He asked at the stairs. Deciding to ignore the pot and kettle moment, the group went back to the matter at hand. Well, it's great to see you again, B. And I'm sure we got a ton of catching up to do. It's going to have to wait until later. This village is going to be under attack soon from one of their friends who was captured and brainwashed. We need to stop him hard and fast, but try not to hurt him too badly, Naruto quickly explained as he got his weapons pouch from where it was hanging on the hospital bed. The one named Knuckles said, yeah, we know, Tails told us the majority on what happened, and while I don't normally like getting involved in this sort of thing, I don't like the idea of that greaseball Robotnik playing Sonic like a puppet. Plus me and Sally Acorn go back a long ways, so I'm willing to help out in any way I can. Oh ho? What's this? It almost sounds like a possible love triangle in the making between Sonic, Knuckles and the princess. If I didn't know better, I'd almost say that this was part of one of your perverted sensei's books minus the copious amounts of sexual scenes that actually made his prince sell. Kurama quipped from within the seal. Naruto's one eyebrow twitched at that and he thought furiously, lay off Fuzzbutt. Another deep voice laughed in his mind. It's really good to see you unwinding a bit, Kurama. Your earlier high and mighty attitude was getting on everybody's nerves, Gyuki chimed in telepathically. Oh, shove it, Gyuki! Kurama snapped. Naruto decided to tune out the rest of the sibling banter for now, and this was fortunate as he was about to miss the battle plan. It was fairly simplistic in its design, but due to Mechasonic's rapid approach to Knothole, they had to make do. The plan was for a three-pronged assault against the roboticized hero with B, Naruto, and Knuckles teaming up against the menace, the former two insisting that they were up for the task. Due to Sonic's metal body, while he was more durable, he couldn't recover from damage as he normally would as a flesh and blood being, so he'd eventually get worn down and momentarily shut down. The Freedom Fighters would then restrain Sonic and try to figure out a way to turn him back to normal. It was a touch-and-go plan if there ever was one, and something the two Jinchuriki excelled at. The three fighters were taken to the launch platform, where Tails sent them hurtling through the air towards Mechasonic's location. Knuckles grabbed B and Naruto in each hand as he used his ability to glide in order to hasten their flight. Once the brainwashed hero was in sight, Knuckles dropped the two shinobi off in the trees so they could flank him, while the Echidna himself would take him head-on. Hedgehog met Echidna midair with the red brawler sending the blue robot sprawling back. But Mechasonic quickly recovered and retaliated with a series of super-fast jabs. The two exchanged blows for a moment until Knuckles suddenly was able to get the corrupted hero into a grappling position. It's all over, Red. First I trash Knothole. Then your floating island and anything else Robotnik orders me to do. Mechasonic snarled as he struggled to break Knuckles' grip. Coughing, the Guardian shot back, no robot can whip me, see? In retaliation, Mechasonic's eyes lit up as he prepared to fire a powerful optic beam, but just as he was about to fire, two blurs shot out of the trees surrounding them. It was none other than Naruto and B with their arms extended. Double lariat! They both shouted as their outstretched arms caught both sides of Mechasonic's neck. It was only due to both Mechasonic's metal neck and the fact that the ninja reinforced their blows heavily with chakra that Sonic didn't receive a potentially fatal blow. It did, however, throw off Sonic's aim as his beams missed Knuckles by a few inches and left him disoriented. This caused all four fighters to descend to ground level, which worked out since neither B nor Naruto could fly. Shaking off the last of his disorientation, the Robian glared at the trio with glowing red eyes. In the name of Robotnik, I will see you destroyed, he growled before charging forward. We need to take him down hard and fast without damaging him too much, guys. Unfortunately, Kurama and I still aren't at 100% yet thanks to transporting here. How about you two? Naruto mentally relayed to the Cloud Jinchuriki. Before B could answer, in rap form no doubt, Gyuki cut in. Sorry Naruto, that's a negative on our end as well. It will still be a couple weeks before we be able to go into our cloak mode, let alone full-tailed beast mode. The only thing I can recommend is keep the robot on its toes and not give it an inch. If all goes according to plan, he'll tire himself out eventually enough so we can capture him. B chimed in. We're gonna have to float like a butterfly and sting like a killer bee. The other human and two Biju's sweat dropped at B's eccentricities before Kurama spoke up. He's got a point though. This version of Sonic, while still fast, doesn't seem nearly as speedy as he is as flesh and blood. Instead he seems to be completely reliant on his flight and weapons, so hit and run tactics might be enough to take him down. The two-dimensional travelers nodded at that, and quickly relayed the message to Knuckles as Mechasonic approached. Giving an affirmative, Knuckles added, You two are faster than me from what I've seen, so I'll keep the bucket of bolts over there focused on me while you two see how many hits it takes to get to the center of that metalhead. With that, Knuckles broke off from the group and shouted at Mechasonic, Hey Sonic, I knew you were lame before, but it looks like becoming a robot has made you a whole new level of pathetic. Eyes flashing, Mechasonic locked onto Knuckles' position. Even without Robotnik's orders, I will gladly put you in your place, you dreadlock-wearing meathead, preferably 6 feet under. As Mechasonic prepared to fire his wrist lasers, however, Killer B jumped onto his back. Before the roboticized hero could shake him off, B's body crackled with electricity. Yo, you might be some metal monstrosity, but next to Killer B you're just another turkey. Lightning style, lightning overdose. With that, lightning chakra was transferred into Mechasonic's body and gave him quite the nasty shock. The jutsu also had the added bonus of weighing down its target momentarily, which gave Knuckles the opportunity to get in close and deliver a 1-2 combo to the metal hedgehog's gut. Mechasonic grunted as he was sent crashing to the ground, but he then flipped up and then aimed his arms at both foes. Enough. Surrender yourselves and I swear your deaths won't be nearly as severe, he began to say before suddenly Naruto appeared in front of him with a low-powered Rasengan shoved towards the hedgehog's chest. The blast, while not fatal, was enough to send him sprawling. This time, before Mechasonic could recover, Knuckles appeared before him and delivered a hammer blow to his face. And stay down, Knuckles ordered as he backed up just in case. Mechasonic got back up, but he was looking worse for wear. His metal body was covered in scratches, dents, and dirt, but he was clearly willing to go another round. Just as the fighters all got ready to re-engage, a familiar sickening voice boomed out over Mechasonic's wrist-mounted communicator. What is taking so long, Mechasonic? Surely these peons aren't enough to stop you from destroying Knothole and everyone in it. Bah, never mind, I'll do it myself. Send me the coordinates to Knothole Village. I have an entire stockpile of nuclear bombs I'm dying to use. Robotnik's voice sneered. For just a moment, Mechasonic hesitated. Something that Naruto caught on to and thought, I knew it, Sonic's still in there, and he's fighting what that fat blubberbutt is doing to him. Yes, but for how long though? It looks to me that this is just a temporary reprieve, and soon that speedster is going to be under that fat human's thrall again, Kurama intoned. You're right, and I think I might know a way to exploit this. I just need a few minutes to prepare this, cause I always sucked at this back home, Naruto thought as he began to channel his chakra in a certain way. Meanwhile, Mecha Sonic was starting to get over his hesitation at Robotnik's increasing command. I send you the location of knothole? Why yes, of course. Sorry master, the numbers are, ARGH. Mecha Sonic was cut off as a short sword coated in lightning chakra suddenly flew at high speeds right into his communicator, breaking off the call. Mecha Sonic turned with a glare and saw B with his arm outstretched after throwing the sword, his other 7 clutched safely in Samahata's mouth. Sorry to interrupt your call, but I've got to make sure you fall. B rapped as he grabbed his other short swords and held them in an unorthodox manner so that he looked like a warped pin cushion. Bring it, meatbag. Mecha Sonic roared as he charged towards the de-aged Cloud Ninja. However, due to his distraction, Mecha Sonic didn't notice Knuckles coming in with a strong right hook that sent him flying back once again. Shortly afterwards, B charged ahead with his body coated in lightning chakra and, slashing his swords in a rotating manner, cried, lightning style, lightning tornado. The force of the lightning in blade-formed tornado carried Mecha Sonic away with enough force that he flew straight back towards Robotropolis, his body littered with scrapes and spasms of electricity. The other 2 combatants followed close behind while Naruto was on their tail, getting done with the last few preparations of his plan and hoping his theory worked out. Meanwhile, in Robotropolis, Dr. Robotnik stood over his mechanized foe in the crater his landing produced with what would almost seem like worry in his soulless red and black eyes. Picking Mecha Sonic up to inspect the damage, Robotnik chortled as he saw that the damage, while severe, was still reparable. Before the not-so-good doctor could take the brainwashed hero away, however, he was stopped by a fist of the kisser in the form of Knuckles and B. Dazed, Robotnik could only groan through a more swollen than normal lip. A gao arr new able tab fid by greatest great ion? Dis is impossible. Knuckles sneered down at the pudgy tyrant. Humph, maybe if you didn't cheap out on your robots with weaker foreign parts. Not only that, but I could see through most of the fight Sonic was fighting your programming the entire time, taking blows that should have been easy for him to dodge normally. Face it, Doc, you lost this round. B threw in his 2 cents the way only he could. Yo. Better luck next time, Robotnik, cause we win this round, you bloated old tick. Fool ya fool. However, as the 2 heroes focused on the down dictator, Mecha Sonic, despite his damages and malfunctioning systems, managed to pull himself up and was about to attack even if it meant his most likely death. Before that could happen, he found himself restrained by a certain blonde shinobi, or more specifically, several copies of a certain blonde shinobi. Naruto, seeing that his shadow clones had a firm grasp on the mechanized hero and that the doctor was still shaking out the cobwebs from his egg-shaped noggin, decided to enact his plan. His hand glowing slightly from the chakra being focused in it, Naruto dashed towards the restrained Mecha Sonic and thought, well, here goes nothing, before laying his palm against the Robian's head. The roboticized hero of Mobius seemed to freeze before his red eyes flashed green and he pitched forward in a feint with the only thing supporting him being the 4 shadow clones restraining him. Satisfied that Mecha Sonic won't be attacking them anymore at least, Naruto called out to his 2 companions, hey guys, I got Sonic, so let's get out of here. Giving a nod, the other 2 fighters turned to leave but not before B gave Robotnik one last mocking wave goodbye before they left just in time to avoid the approaching security badniks Robotnik had on standby. The group quickly made their way back towards knothole while making sure that they weren't being followed and they soon ran into the other worried freedom fighters. As Naruto handed off Sonic to Rotor, he could hear the metal hedgehog muttering, I be betrayed my F friends and L love Denise D don't deserve to L live, Naruto thought. So I was right, that feeling I got from Sonic and the other controlled Robians was like a strong genjutsu being used on someone, and all it needed was an equally strong pulse of chakra to disrupt it. 1. Kurama remarked, I wouldn't get your hopes up too high just yet, brat. We already saw that Sonic was fighting that fat human's control before you even hit him with the chakra pulse, so you can't say for certain if that's what was able to get the hedgehog back to his senses. Who knows, the beating you 3 gave him might just have knocked a few screws loose, pun completely intended. Still though, and Naruto could feel Kurama grinning at him, good job Naruto at getting your friend back. Now all we have to do is figure out how to get Blue Boy back to his old self, and we can then put all this mechanized madness behind us. Accepting that his tailed friend had a point, Naruto watched as Nicole and Rotor, the 2 most tech-savvy of the freedom fighters, discussed possible ways on turning Sonic back to normal. Unfortunately, the roboticizer/deroboticizer that they had in knothole was an older model and wouldn't work on Sonic. That said, the AI of the group made a startling discovery. Recently, Sonic came upon his 1 billionth magic ring, and said ring gave a sort of protective field around Sonic's life force, allowing his personality to be saved even through Robotnik's brain burn-through device that was used to make Sonic a mindless slave. This in turn would allow them to turn Sonic back to normal with the right equipment. Unfortunately, Rotor's workshop with said equipment was in the part of knothole that was destroyed during Mecha Sonic's earlier rampage. However, despite the risks, Nicole offered to be hooked up to Sonic to activate the magic that lingered within him to turn him back to normal. It was an intense few minutes as the brave little AI went to work, but soon a wave of mystical energy engulfed the fallen hero and turned Mecha Sonic back into the flesh and blood Sonic the Hedgehog. And despite a bit of disorientation on both Sonic and Nicole's part, the two would be alright. As Naruto celebrated along with the other freedom fighters and both Bee and Knuckles, he couldn't help but think that even though there will be some rough times ahead thanks to the damages caused by Mecha Sonic, everything would be alright for now. In the meantime, he was going to join in on celebrating Sonic's recovery, and then spend time catching up with Bee. For now, everything was good. But, as often is the case, they may have won the battle but the war carries on. To be continued. 1. This is the big reveal I've been waiting for since Naruto was first introduced to the Robians. The way I see it, their brainwashing is similar in ways to how some genjutsu, specifically those used by Madara and Obito Uchiha, were used to enslave people, and I figured that they could be broken out of it in a similar way with a pulse of chakra to disrupt the genjutsu. Now granted, Naruto is still not 100% sure this will work due to the fact Sonic's roboticization was somewhat unique thanks to the whole power ring protection, but eventually he'll discover that it works on regular Robians as well. Granted, when Robotnik learns of this ability, as well as the other chakra abilities, this is going to put a target on Naruto's back, but in my opinion that'll just make things more interesting. So boss man, what's the plan? Killer Bee rapped as the two Jinchuriki sat in one of the many trees surrounding Knothole. Naruto pondered this for a minute. Well, one of my priorities is finding where Hinata went after the three of us were transported here. Another thing I'd like to look into is possible ways on getting home. While I plan to stick around and help the freedom fighters, I need to bet both you and Hinata back to the elemental nations. Killer Bee swatted the blonde upside the head at that, causing him to yelp. Fool ya fool. Ain't no way I'm leaving this scene, not till everything's in the green. Killer Bee doesn't run, so you better quit now before you get hurt son. Yow. Ruefully rubbing his abused noggin, Naruto argued, but don't you have people to get back to, like A and your team? I think I'd better answer that to avoid any more bad rap. The voice of Kyuki rumbled in his head. After landing in this world, the guardian of Angel Island Knuckles took care of B and nursed him back to health. During that time, the two became friends almost to the AB dynamic he had back in Cloud. We've discussed this, and have come to the similar conclusion to you that until the major threats of this world are vanquished like in our own world, going back home is a minor concern. And we agreed that, while B will miss his family and team, they'd understand and accept his decision. In addition, Naruto could practically feel the eye roll as the Eight Tails continued sarcastically. Bees decided to treat this as an extended vacation. I doubt your girl will leave with ease. Once she finds out you're staying here her main squeeze, Bee added teasingly. An atomic blush adorned whiskered cheeks as Naruto stuttered, stupid octopops. Me and Hinata aren't like that, Naruto grumbled as he heard Bee and the two-tailed beasts laugh uproariously. All of my hate, he growled before switching back to serious mode. Well, it's a moot point regardless because A, we don't know what world/dimension we landed in, and B, even if we did know where home was, we have no way of getting back. For now all we can do is keep our eyes and ears open, protecting this place as we go along. Do you plan on staying here in Knothole with me or going back to Angel Island? Killer Bee rapped. The floating island is where I see the current home of Killer Bee. According to Nux it's always under attack, and it's only a matter of time before that egghead comes back. This place can be your secret base, keep it safe like an expensive vase. Naruto chuckled at that and said, alright Bee. You come visit ya here? In the meantime, I'm going to wait for Sonic to recover before going back to kicking Robobutt and pay a certain buck-toothed weasel a visit for cheap shooting the two of us. The fellow ninja bumped fists before Bee leapt off the tree to go meet his echidna partner who was discussing some last-minute details with Sally before leaving. Naruto meanwhile went to go meet his blue hedgehog friend and check on his progress. Knothole Medical Bay. Sonic tiptoed to the nearest window while wearing his hospital robe. While the stealthy approach wasn't his specialty, he only needed to keep this up for a few more steps before. And just where do you think you're going, HM? He was caught. Crud. Turning, Sonic met the unamused gaze of Dr. Quack. What's up, Doc? I was just, getting some fresh air. He tried weakly. Oh really? The duck doctor drawled in a tone that said he didn't believe the speedster for one moment. Well, as you're currently still needing to rest before I clear you, I suggest you step away from the window and lay back down to continue to relax. Alien concepts to you I'm sure, but they're doctor's orders. Don't make me have to break out the sedatives. Sonic grimaced. He hated being put under, it always made his thinking unfocused and sluggish. Reluctantly, the blue blur got back into the bed with a pout as the doctor went to check his vitals for any lasting damage from his time as Mecha Sonic. Fortunately, besides a few bumps and bruises, mostly to his ego, Sonic was pretty much good to go. Dr. Quack just needed to go over and fill the necessary paperwork before he was a free hedgehog. The doctor left the room to do just that, leaving Sonic alone with his thoughts. Man, this is so not cool. I get blindsided by Knack the Weasel, get turned into a tin soldier slave for Robotnik, nearly trash my friends in base. Then to top it all off I get to die of boredom in this hospital room. He moaned. Yeah, hospitals suck, don't they? A voice from the window Sonic had just tried to escape through sounded. The hedgehog looked to see Naruto crouched on the now open window's ledge. Raising a hand in greeting, the blonde boy said, "Yo." Sonic grinned at the boy and said, "Yo yourself?" "Though seriously Nar, I owe you big time. Not only did you help stop me from seriously hurting any of my friends, but you also probably prevented me from spending jail time. Not like this hospital is much better, mind, but I'd take this over bars and bad chili dogs any day. Why'd you think you'd get jail time?" Naruto questioned as he hopped down from the window and strolled over to Sonic's bed. "Actually, Sally mentioned it. She said that if you hadn't seen Nak carrying me off, she'd probably have to have me stand trial because they'd think I had disobeyed their orders against the plan of letting myself get roboticized to attack Robobreath directly." Naruto frowned at that. While he hadn't known the hedgehog long, he knew that Sonic might be rash and rather bullheaded at times but never directly disloyal. To think that his friends would turn against him like that on a dime was disheartening. The human even said so, to which Sonic waved him off. Don't worry too much about it. While Sal might be pretty chill most of the time, she's still a princess, and needs to make hard choices like that from time to time. And the way I acted when my plan was denied, well, I wouldn't really blame her for at least wanting to get all the facts straight. Of course, I'd be found innocent either way because just look at me. He gave the boy his signature grin before saying, "I'm way too cool to be considered guilty." At this he gave Naruto a solemn look. "You and the others were right though, Naruto. My plan was way too risky, I see that now. After all that we went through, I ain't in a hurry to be roboticized again. Don't beat yourself up too much over it, Sonic. The freedom fighters and I already did that enough for you," Naruto reassured the hero of Mobius with a teasing grin. "But seriously, it wasn't your fault. It was Dr. Lardbutts and that Snaggletooth with the hat's fault. You want to help me pay them back when you're let out of here?" Sonic's grin turned vicious. With interest, he agreed. "Robo-hobo jungle, so we at a junkyard again?" Naruto questioned as he came to a stop next to Sonic. "This ain't no ordinary junkyard Nar, it's the Robo-hobo jungle. Supposedly, this is where all of Robotnik's used and obsolete droids end up. They're a pretty tough crowd from what I heard," Sonic explained. "Huh. Figured Tubby was the sort who would just scrap something utterly when they were no longer of use instead of allowing them to continue existing. Guess that's a point to him in comparison to Madara, his wannabe successor, and that snake human you fought back in the Elemental Nations. Of course, they didn't set the bar very high on standards," Kurama rumbled. While silently agreeing with his partner, Naruto asked out loud, "Do you think these guys will know anything?" Sonic shrugged. "Can't hurt to ask. Besides, we gotta start somewhere, right?" Naruto nodded. "As long as we don't overexert ourselves, according to Doc Quack. I swear, he's even bosier than Granny back home." Sonic chuckled but was cut off by a voice saying, "Oh, trust me, you're not going to need a doctor after I'm done with ya. A mortician will do." Just then a hard metal body slammed into the two heroes. Naruto was able to brace his body with chakra, causing him to only be sent sliding back a few feet while Sonic was knocked to the ground. Fortunately, the blow was only grazing for Sonic and he was able to leap back to his feet with a glare. "Well, if it isn't the first Robotnik knack I ever encountered, Cater Killer." He identified the purple and spiked robot. As the two shouted a few mandatory hero-villain barbs at each other, Naruto was thinking, how'd I not sense this guy? He's hardly the stealthiest schmuck I've ever encountered and far from the strongest. "So how?" "Because you're still complacent brat," Kurama spoke up. "It's the same as when you fought that cowardly weasel. You knew that he didn't have chakra and was weaker than you, so you let your guard down. Same as with this metal insect, you were too cocky with your abilities." Naruto was about to argue but then thought about what the fox said. "You're right. After fighting Orochimaru, the Akatsuki, Obito, and Madara, I figured I could take anything this world threw at me, especially seeing as no one had chakra here. I thought most of the guys I faced would be pushovers. I still got knocked down by Robotnik Mechasonic, that weasel, and now this Tinker Twive fallen in the same hole most of the people I've fought fell into by underestimating my opponent. I'm going to have to stay on alert more often if I want to help." "Good. I don't want you to become lazy like that Nara friend of yours, or egotistical like most Uchiha. And as for why you can't sense these robots is that unlike the Robians, they are purely mechanical and lack the necessary emotions to be felt by you. While they still have anger and other negative emotions, they are more programmed into them than actually felt, making them fly under the radar." Speaking of flying, Kurama informed his hosts before noticing something incoming by using Naruto's senses. "Incoming!" Naruto warned as he dove to the ground, taking Sonic with him. It was just in time too, because a bat-shaped Bannock had just swooped down to brain the two heroes in the back of the head. "Oh great, Batbrain's here too. It's just a regular junkyard reunion," Sonic quipped sarcastically. "Well, look on the bright side," Naruto commented as he kicked a motobug high into the sky. "This'll be a good warm-up for Nak and Fatso." In another dimension, Choji sneezed. "It can also be a good way to make sure you're not rusty from being a robot for a while," Naruto snickered at his own pun. "Boo!" Sonic, the Badniks, and even Kurama hissed. "Everybody's a freaking critic," Naruto grumbled. More and more Badniks started coming out of the literal woodwork as Sonic and Naruto were slowly being pushed back. Noticing this, a crab meat bot cried triumphantly, "Ha! We got him on the ropes, boys. Let's show these 2-bit heroes not to mess with the classics." Hearing this, Sonic turned to Naruto with a grin. "Ya hear that? They think we're two-bit." Naruto returned the grin. "Kind of insulting, really? Shall we stop holding back then? Let's." With that, the hedgehog and the human exploded into motion. Sonic would speed through his enemies like they were cardboard while Naruto would duck and weave between the robots while stabbing and punching vulnerable joints. In a matter of seconds, all the badniks were on the ground in pieces. The two freedom fighters stood triumphantly and dusted themselves off. The severed head of a caterpillar gasped, "No way! How'd you beat us so easily? We had you dead to rights." Sonic chuckled as he picked the decapitated robot up. "To be honest, while you did get the drop on us earlier, I was initially holding back cause I needed one of you canaries to sing." Naruto nodded with a smirk. "And now that we have your end of it attention," he snickered as Sonic and the still functional badniks groaned, "we can get down to business." Now, with this he formed a Rasengan in the palm of his hand and held it under the dangling caterpillar head. "Tell us where Knack the Weasel is." Caterpillar gasped. "The bounty hunter? Do you know what he'd do to me? Is it worse than dropping you on an attack capable of blowing a 3-foot-thick steel door apart?" Sonic questioned and, noticing Caterpillar seemed to metaphorically sweat, responded, "Yeah, didn't think so." "Now talk." Okay. "I'll talk, just don't drop me." "You'll never come back alive anyway," he muttered the last part before stating, "Knack's hiding out at BBBNG, the bottom of the Barrow Bar and Grill." "Charming name," Naruto said dryly as he ran beside Sonic. "Should be. This place is the seediest dive on Mobius. I'm going in. You mind standing guard for now and make sure he doesn't try and pull a runner? While I know I can beat Knack, that weasel's a slippery sucker." Seeing Naruto about to protest, Sonic added, "And I'll be sure to let you get in a few licks before they throw his purple butt back into jail." Conceding, Naruto said, "Fine." The two stopped right in front of the entrance to the BBBNG, where a large gorilla bouncer stood menacingly. Sonic went up to smooth-talk the large simian into letting him in as Naruto hung back, but this quickly escalated into having the blue hedgehog thrown like a baseball into the distance. Luckily, he had a hand in the form of a blonde ninja, who jumped up and snagged him out of the air before he could see what dirt tasted like. "Smooth talk, huh? If that's your idea of smooth, I'd hate to see what you consider sandpaper," Naruto said with mirth. Yeah? Yuck it up NAR, that banana breath bouncer is about to get a taste of my high-powered figure-8 move. Sonic growled as he started revving his speedy legs until they became a blur that took the shape of a sideways 8. "Coming at you, Coco!" Sonic cried as he shot forward faster than a speeding bullet. The hedgehog ran full force into the gorilla, propelling himself and the bouncer right through the front door. "Literally, man, waiting sucks." Naruto whined in his head as he paced, waiting for Sonic to come out with the bounty hunter. "So does hearing you whine about it, yet here we are," Kurama snarked. "Oh, shut up, mister, come closer so I can tear you apart," Naruto shot back. "Touche douche," Kurama conceded. "So after we snag that snaggle tooth, what's next?" "Well, for starters, I'm going to be training heavily for the next couple of weeks between helping the freedom fighters and keeping my ear to the ground for any signs of Hinata. Then I'm going to see if I can find some way to communicate between here and the elemental nations. I was thinking of trying the summoning jutsu, but I've been worried that I'd end up stranding any toad I summon here too. Plus there's the fact that they haven't seemed to be able to reverse summon me yet, so who knows if the summoning would even work. Besides that, though, I am still working on it," Naruto thought. Surprisingly well thought out for an impulsive brat like you. Personally, I'd try summoning one of those amphibians that possibly wouldn't mind being stuck here with you for a while just in case they can't be summoned back yet. Perhaps one of those two mentally challenged children of Gamabunta? I bet they just see it as a vacation anyway, Kurama advised. Before Naruto could call the fox out on his insults to both the blonde and his toad friends, he noticed a familiar purple weasel coming out of the bar, yet Sonic wasn't with him. This can't be good, Naruto worried. Act now, worry later. That weasel is getting away, Kurama shouted in his mind. Indeed, Knack had gotten onto his ion-powered sky sled and was starting to take off. Acting quickly, Naruto sprung from where he was standing guard at so he'd be right in the ship's path. Knack looked surprised to see Naruto there as well before developing an evil smirk and gunning the engines, clearly planning on running the blonde down. Instead of looking worried though, Naruto gained a smirk of his own as the prankster in him came out to play. The second Knack's ride hit him, the ninja went up in a cloud of smoke. Before Knack could question this, his ship jerked with a hard impact and he was sent flying over the handlebars, making him kiss dirt. Sputtering, Knack turned around while wondering what the heck just happened. His eyes widened when he saw his sled was completely totaled from crashing headfirst into a large boulder. Pretty neat what you can do with a well-placed replacement jutsu, huh? A playful voice sounded behind him. Before Knack could turn around, a knee was pressed into his back, forcing him once more onto the ground and his arms were twisted painfully behind him in a hold. Grunting in pain, Knack was able to twist his head just enough to see a grinning Naruto pinning him to the ground. How dash! Knack hissed through the pain in his arms. A magician never reveals his secrets, Naruto said with a wink. And neither do ninja. Well, nice to see things wrapped up here, Sonic commented as he walked out of the bar he was in and up to the whiskered boy with his prisoner. Creep got the jump on me with sleeping gas, but I was able to shake it off pretty fast this time. I was about to use my speed to catch up to him, and hide in the back of his ride to give him a nasty surprise, but I saw you had it covered. Well, that's one down, Naruto noted as they cuffed the protesting bounty hunter with a pair of handcuffs Sonic brought with them. How do you think we should get back at Dr. Multichin? Eyeing the wrecked but still functional sky sled, Sonic gained a mischievous gleam in his eyes. I think I've got an idea, Robotropolis. Dr. Robotnik scowled as a SWATbot came into his private work study as he was putting the finishing touches on the plans for his newest toxic dump. What is it? Can't you see I'm busy? There is an incoming call from Knack the Weasel's communicator, sire, the SWATbot replied. Grumbling, Robotnik picked up the line. What is it, Knack? If you're still wanting your pay for that Sonic the Hedgehog job, then you got another thing. The sound of a game show buzzer came through the line as an annoyingly familiar voice sounded out. Ooh, wrong guess, Chubbs. Want to go for double jeopardy where the stakes are really high? The doctor gasped before glaring at the communicator. It's you! That annoying blonde brat who was with those pesky freedom fighters. And Sonic too! An equally vexing voice came through. So Tubby, I was on my way to turn in Knack the Weasel to the proper authorities when I thought I'd discuss your insurance with you. I've noticed you've been rebuilding Robotropolis after the earthquakes and the fight between me and my friends. But are you properly covered, Evo? What if something unforeseen was to happen? You never know, some nut could send in an ion sky sled on autopilot and set it to self-destruct. And hypothetically, someone else may or may not have placed a little extra something on said sled to go off the moment it detonates. Just a quick question, are you allergic to feathers? The blonde menace asked in a similarly irritating tone. What are you two babbling about? Are you threatening me with an incoming, armed weapon of destruction? Robotnik sneered. Meanwhile, the SWATbot who had been working on the city's security cameras reported in. Good news, master, the computer is working and it's detecting an incoming, armed weapon of Chukadoom. Robotnik coughed as the smoke from the exploding sky sled started to clear. Luckily, the wall had taken most of the impact, and he was largely unhurt. However, the damages to his fortress were severe and would set back his diabolical plans for weeks. Not only that, Robotnik realized with horror, but the surprise Uzumaki had mentioned seemed to have been some sort of feather bomb that had the feathers coated in quick, drying glue. Now, he and his entire base looked like fried chickens. His eyes seemed to glow as he shouted to the heavens, I hate that hedgehog. And his little blonde friend too. Knothole, I'm glad to see you two are all right, Sally told the heroic duo as the royal guards led Knack to his prison cell. Come on, Sal, it's me. Have I ever failed a mission yet? Sonic asked coyly. And with me there was no way we'd lose, Naruto agreed as the two of them exchanged fist bumps. Smiling, Sally said, regardless, I'm happy that everything worked out in the end. And with the added damage to Robotnik's base, we'll have time to rebuild some of our own damage and plan for our next operations. As the princess continued to debrief the two heroes, Naruto couldn't help the excited smile on his face. Whether it was at home or on this strange new world, his life was never boring. What if Naruto was in Sonic the Hedgehog? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.